This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1740, Previews!
Laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek, uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is...
I'm Chris Everly.
I'm Ian Levinstein.
And I'm Adam Murdo.
Murd, that was a wonderful flourish you added there at the end. Magnificent, brother. Magnificent.
It's no substitute for the pleasant mellifluousness of your "and I'm Chris Everly."
I'm just a ham bone and an ass, but thank you for the kind words.
Every now and then you'll need a little bit of variety.
Indeed. And variety is the spice of life, as they say when it comes to truisms. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here another month. I'm sorry, Murd, go ahead. I apologize, sir.
Never mind, I was just being a smartass. Continue speaking, please, Chris.
Welcome one and all to our monthly previews ritual. As we're going to go through the catalog, we're going to put on our mining helmets, turn on the lamps, and descend into the previews cave. I don't know where am I going with this terrible analogy. I have no idea.
I don't know, but please keep going.
I think we're talking spelunking.
Yeah, I was going to start talking about spelunking in just a minute. You read my mind. I do better when I do like military analogies, like we're mounting the parapet or something like that. But, you know, we're going to explore the previews, ladies and gentlemen.
We're clearly back in a dungeon. That's just...
See what tasty morsels await us there.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, it's a previews episode. I wonder what that means.
Well, Ian Levinstein, it means that it's sponsored by our good friends at the Discount Comic Book Service. Which can be found at their website, dcbservice.com. It is the canny comics consumers' first go-to source for pre-ordering comic books via the internet. They have fantastic deep discounts available on a monthly basis. Any new comic books on offer through Marvel or DC are automatically 40% off. Same story goes for Image and Dark Horse. Other publishers, slightly less. Base price is usually 35% off. Trades and hardcovers, new from those companies, also 40% off base price, quite often 50% off. And certain special spotlighted deals every month will go to more like 50, 60, or even 75% off the cover price when ordered through dcbservice.com. We'll be speaking to some of those deals in more detail later on in this podcast. You can also set how often you want to receive your pre-ordered comics shipped to you from dcbservice.com. And for a little bit of extra money, you can have them bagged and boarded in a variety of grades of bags and boards. And also, we have to plug their premier customer service because on those rare occasions when little glitches occur, they're always a dream to work with as far as ironing out whatever little problems may arise. They're always very good at communicating with their customers, making them aware of special deals, and reminding them to place their monthly orders before time runs out. They're a family-owned company. They're good friends of ours and a loyal sponsor, and we encourage everyone to do as we do here at CBS and give them their custom. And to do so, you have only to go to dcbservice.com for all of your comics pre-order needs.
Very good, sir. Very good. So let's get started here. And
Image
it is.
Page 38, Coffin Bound number 1, Gem of the Month. Writer Dan Waters, artist and cover art Danny. Cars, guns, entropy. That's the opening tagline.
That says a lot.
Chased by an unstoppable killer, Izzy Tyburn has decided that the world won't have her in it. It can have nothing of her at all. She's retreading her life, leaving nothing but burned rubber, ash, and the sun-scorched bones of those who get in her way. Okay, it says if you like the grindhouse vibes of Bitch Planet and the high-stakes action of Tokyo Ghost, you'll love Coffin Bound.
Okay. I do love those things, so hopefully I will love this thing.
Well, you can find out if you love this thing as much as you love those things for a 50% off discount at dcbservice.com on the first issue.
Not too shabby. $1.99.
And they have preview art on pages 39 through 41. The art is impressive. So
Very good. Gentlemen, I would be remiss not to mention page 37, considering I mentioned 299 last time around. Here we are with Spawn number 300.
Oh, I totally missed that. Thank you, Ian.
Yep. A momentous occasion. Written by Todd McFarlane and Scott Snyder. The art by Todd McFarlane, Greg Capullo, returning to Spawn for the first time in years. Jason Sean Alexander, J. Scott Campbell, and Jerome Pena. And that's
Does anybody know what's happening in Spawn?
No. I believe he's just Spawn being Spawn, all spawning around like Spawn. That's the description that I could give for the series. But 300 issues though, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Hell no, absolutely. It says here, Spawn becomes the longest running independent series in comic book history.
Outstanding.
So
good for that.
Yeah, I have to admit I haven't read Spawn since, I don't know, the 50s. as an issue number is not, of course, the decade. So
yeah,
if anyone in the forums is a fan, maybe they can write up a little explanation of where Spawn is. I'd be interested to read that.
Most definitely.
So.
But congratulations to McFarlane, and nice to see, like I said, nice to see Capullo returning to Spawn for the first time in years, even for just a few pages.
Is Savage Dragon close to 300?
It's got to be.
Right?
It's gone on more hiatuses than Spawn ever did, so it's definitely falling at least a little bit behind. But it's still being published from what I know of, so it's got to be pretty close.
Well, in a era of sound bites and tweets and very short attention spans, I mean, it's no small achievement to maintain a publication for 300 issues like this.
Absolutely.
So,
yep.
And I'm not a enormous fan of McFarlane's work. I like some of it, others I don't. But hats off to this achievement. So,
Here.
All right. What else we got in Image?
I see on page 42, Pretty Violent #1. Love that name. The dichotomy of the two versions of the cover alone have me interested in this. As the more cartoony, regular cover, and then the variant is just bloody as hell. So I'm not quite sure what we're going to get inside, but it sure is going to be violent.
Well, they got some promo pages, and it is very violent in a very cartoonish way. And they have a character called Hulktress.
Okay. That's on the money. But I'm looking at the art style. It actually reminds me a little bit of the art style that you'd find on something like Star Versus. So I'm immediately interested.
All right.
Derek Hunter and Jason Young.
I'm looking on page 50. Simon Says Nazi Hunter, Volume 1, original graphic novel, trade paperback. An artist forced to paint swastikas on train cars for the Nazis during the Holocaust has become an unlikely vigilante in pre-Cold War Europe. Interesting. What's that?
I said in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. I was lost for a moment because they say pre-Cold War Europe. I don't know. For me, the Cold War began essentially as World War II was ending. But,
right.
That's interesting.
Your mileage may vary on start time, I guess.
Yes, well, yeah. There's different. I'm not going to get into a historical discussion about because there are different takes on that. But
yeah,
there's rarely agreement on historical periodization, whether you're talking about comics or real life.
That's for sure, my friend. That's for sure. It's funny because I mentioned I'm working on developing my own history podcast, which is a long labor of love because it takes a lot of time. As I go through material, I'm like, it's Murd's right on the money. I mean, you can have one interpretation, somebody has a completely different one. So
yeah, I like the art style. It's very down to earth.
Me too.
Yeah.
And now, all right, I'm very excited about page 52. Is this what you're referring to when we spoke about this last time, Ian?
I believe yes. It sure as hell is. Yep. White Trees #1 by Zdarsky and Anka.
I'm reading it.
Thought you would be.
Yeah, I mean, Chip Zdarsky is one of those writers, and no, he's not paying me to say this, who is some listeners will understand why I just said that. I've just loved everything this guy's done. I think the work he's done for Marvel in recent years has just been sensational. Marvel 2-in-1 comes to mind immediately. Of course, right now he's doing Spider-Man Life Story, which, by the way, Ian, I did finally read the 3rd issue. God damn!
Yep.
So
I just read issue 4.
All right, so we'll talk about that in the next comic talk.
Yep.
But this is looks like a fantasy story.
Yes, it is.
You know anything about this, or just what's here?
Just from what I know here, but I do know that that this is new territory for both of them. I mean, I've been waiting to see Chris Anka's art outside of superheroes and romance for a while, because those seem to be his two areas of purvey. But been a huge fan of his artwork for years now. I've got a piece of his sitting on my wall, on the wall of my room, of an Invincible character. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what both Zdarsky and Anka can do in the realm of fantasy. Just from the character designs alone, it's unique and should be pretty inventive.
And it's a 2-issue oversized miniseries.
Correct. You don't see that very often.
No. So I'm going to definitely give that a shot. All right, what else in Image? We're now into the monthlies. Anyone want to shout out anything in particular?
There's a new printing of Fatale for anybody who hasn't checked it out. On page 55. I know that you're a huge fan of the Brubaker, Phillips, and Stewart combo. But this is all 5 issues of Fatale in one package, and they're re-releasing that as a trade, so it'll be readily available for all you peoples.
Yeah, I mean, Fatale was. I mean, we should emphasize that the series ran longer than 5 issues. This is the first arc.
Yes.
And what's wonderful about this, because Brubaker and Phillips are especially known for their crime noir pieces. This sort of merges that with almost like a black magic theme, but it works. Basically, it follows this woman throughout time, who seemingly is a supernatural being in some ways. I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's immensely satisfying. And if you like Brubaker and Phillips, because you haven't tried this yet, just don't think, snag it. If you want to get into their work, this is as good a place to start as any. Great pick, Ian. Great pick.
Thank you. And we do have an answer to your initial question, Chris, on page 57. They're collecting issues 235 to 240 of Savage Dragon.
Okay, there you go.
So that says about how much we have of that so far.
Also an incredible achievement.
If we were to jump to page 73, you'll find issue number 248 being solicited this very month.
Well, there you go.
I just got a jolt of electricity. The teamwork we just demonstrated there without even trying. Thrilling.
We are the 3-in-1.
Yep, we're just the living tribunal.
Oh, jeez.
Love
it. Deep cuts. All right,
yep.
Page 74. We mentioned this last month, so we haven't read the issue 1, hasn't come out yet, but Sea of Stars, which is Jason Aaron's new book for Image. I'm very excited to read the first issue. It's Jason Aaron doing a space story. That's enough. I mean, he's another one of those writers who I can't think of something he's written that hasn't enthralled me to some degree. So I'm looking forward to this quite a bit.
His co-writer here is Dennis Hallam, a.k.a. Dennis Hopeless. So any fans out there of his work for Marvel, like Avengers, Arena, and Spider-Woman, etc., might want to take notice of this as well.
Murd, you were a fan of Arena, weren't you?
In spite of myself, yes. I hated the basic concept, but Hopeless executed it so well that I couldn't help but stay in its thrall until it was canceled.
Yeah,
all right.
I've had that problem with a couple of series over the years.
So you hate to love, right?
Oh my God, yes, yeah. I'll also mention, by the way, before we move past Image, just because it's Wicked and the Divine, on page 59, the final story arc is being collected with Volume 9, and then Volume 10, I guess, would be the final trade, which will come out a little bit later.
Now, Murd has praised this extensively. Now that this is ending, I can go back and start reading the trades and looking forward to that.
Yes, and you'll be happy with what you see.
I have no doubt. Dark Horse, gentlemen?
Dark Horse it is.
Make it
All right.
so.
I'm really excited. On page 86, Jeff Lemire, working with Mike Diodato, is doing like a sword and sorcery story. Berserker Unbound, a 4-issue miniseries.
Otherwise known as It's Not Conan, We Swear?
Correct. That's quite a codpiece the guy is wearing there. A merciless sword and sorcery warrior finds himself blessed through a wormhole to a modern-day metropolis where he must protect those around him from an evil wizard determined to send him to hell. I'm going to try this. I mean, what a creative team. Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that art on page 87. That splash page. Oh, yeah.
It's cover featured on the front cover of this previews catalog that we're discussing.
Yep.
And it is also spotlighted as a 50% off bargain at dcbservice.com this month.
Nice.
All right.
This is part of Mike Diodato's, journey outside the world of Marvel Comics, as we mentioned a couple of previews ago. That once he's done with this this current Avengers, what was it, Avengers Dark or whatever he's on now, that will be his last work for Marvel for quite some time to come. He's said that he's moving on to independent and otherwise. So this is the beginning of that.
Good for him. For whatever his reasons, I'm looking forward to seeing him flex his muscles artistically in different ways. Fantastic.
Yep.
Page 88, we're looking forward to this, the first issue of this. This is number 2, of course, Black Hammer Justice League, Hammer of Justice by Lemire. And I'm really looking forward to the first issue of this. I mean, Black Hammer, as I mentioned many times, for me is one of the best superhero-themed comics being published today. So really excited to see what Lemire does with this crossover.
Yeah. Intermingling that success with the classic DC characters that kind of inspired the whole Black Hammer concept in the first place. It's automatic in. And check out that Bizarro variant on page 89.
Ah, yes.
Not order.
Fantastic, Murd.
Nice.
Fantastic. So just pointing out for all the TV fans, because on page 91 they're doing a new Stranger Things miniseries. That's coming back July, isn't it, Ian?
July 4th it's being released.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, July 4th.
Yep.
Okay.
In fact, right now, if you go to a Baskin Robbins near you, not a sponsor, we swear, you can get a bunch of ice cream flavors that are inspired by Stranger Things, and they're also selling an exclusive pop vinyl at each location, which you may have to pay an arm and a leg for, depending on the Baskin Robbins, because they're only supposed to be selling it for $15, but I've seen receipts of them selling it for $35. But
oh my God!
It's supposed to be a Baskin Robbins inspired pop vinyl that's only available there.
Okay. I don't see as many Baskin Robbins around as I used to. Sometimes they're still combined with Dunkin' Donuts, but
yeah, that's mostly how I see them around here in New York as a combo.
Yep. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the new season. I'm assuming they're going to have established that time has passed because the kids are all older now. So
they're going to have to. Yeah, I mean, puberty hit hard for a couple of them. So it's
I can imagine.
Yeah, hard not to avoid that.
Yep. All right, moving on.
Page 92. Hellboy and the SPRD, Saturn Returns #1. Writer Mike Mignola, Scott Alley is co-writing it as well with Christopher Mitten on art and cover. And another miniseries in the world of Hellboy and the BPRD, a small town in New Hampshire that's been plagued by disappearances is shaken when a local discovers a pile of corpses that date back decades. And BPRD agents have to investigate. Looks interesting.
All right. That's a world I haven't explored enough. I haven't really read that much Hellboy, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, I've read a smattering of issues, but I've always enjoyed what I've read.
Yeah. All right, what else for Dark Horse? Anybody know anything about the Invisible Kingdom on page 90? Because I know G. Willow Wilson is a fairly acclaimed writer. Anybody familiar with that?
No, I'm not familiar with Invisible Kingdom, but now that the first volume's out, I'll definitely be giving it a shot. I've enjoyed her work in the past, both on Air for, I think it was a Vertigo title, and her stuff for Ms. Marvel has been excellent. So I'm certainly willing to give it a shot.
And I believe she's writing Wonder Woman now, correct?
She is, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And artwork by Christian Ward, who was also the artist on that sort of trippy, psychedelic, gender-bent outer space reimagination of Homer's Odyssey.
Oh,
that's
right.
A while ago. Bill Ellis was a big fan of that,
Yes.
written by Matt Fraction.
Yes, he was.
He's working his magic on this as well. And for those hungry for still more Christian Ward, on the facing page here, page 99, he is writing and I guess providing a little bit of the artwork for a 4-issue miniseries called Tommy Gun Wizards, which is basically Elliot Ness and his Untouchables versus Dark Magicians. So I'm going to give that a try.
That's. I just love the concept. So it says here that Al Capone isn't dealing in alcohol, but in magic. Wait. With lick, a drug that grants magical powers to anyone who ingests it, mobsters become wizards, ordinary men become monsters, and darker secrets than Ness can imagine lie at the heart of it all. I love the concept.
So do I, Chris. So do I.
I'm going to have Pinball Wizard stuck in my head all night.
There's nothing wrong with having the Who stuck in your head, Ian.
That is true.
Nothing at
Hans
all.
would agree with that 1,000%.
Yep. I've been lucky to see them twice in concert. The first time when Entwistle was still living, so way too young to have ever seen Keith Moon, but tremendous performances. All right, what else we got? Oh, I want to point out page 103. Dark Horse is a Star Wars book.
Huh.
So it's the art of the great animated series Rebels. So it's all about behind the scenes art book on that series. Interesting.
They found a way.
Well, I'm really glad to see that, since some of the best stuff Dark Horse ever produced was from their Star Wars license. Over what, a 20-year period?
Yep.
Something like that. So I'm glad to see that. Disney's seems to be. I'm speaking here from total conjecture, but it seems like they're kind of doling out the love to various publishers when it comes to the Star Wars property.
Yeah. I want to go up one page actually to 102.
Please.
Most cats have 9 lives, but the fates of billions rest on this feline. Strayed number 1. It looks like a very sci-fi driven cat story by Carlos Gafani and Juan Doe doing the art and cover. I love saying that name.
I could hear how you were savoring that as it, rolled off your tongue.
But this is issue 1 of a 5-issue miniseries, so it'll be collected eventually. But if you want to start out on the ground floor, this is where to do it.
Oh, look on page 109. An artist I've always admired, Brian Talbot. A hardcover entitled Rain. Set against the backdrop of the disastrous 2017 floods in northern England, Rain chronicles a relationship between 2 young women, one an environmental activist. Their wild moorland is being criminally mismanaged, crops are being poisoned, and animals are being slaughtered. The characters are fictional. The tragedy is shockingly real.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love Talbot. When I was much younger, I just picked it up on a whim when Dark Horse produced the 2nd volume of the Luther Arkwright saga. Is anybody familiar with this? Or
No.
I remember seeing the promotions for it. I never actually read it.
Yeah, I had not read the original Luther Arkwright, but it blew me away. But the artwork, just magnificent. So that's interesting. Glad to see some new work from him. Anything else for Dark Horse, gentlemen?
Not on my account.
No.
Actually, wait a minute, Ian.
Go ahead.
We got to mention on page 121.
Let's see.
I Am a Hero Omnibus Volume 11.
Ah, there you go.
It's like this is the final volume.
Yeah. This is gonna actually wait. Let's see. Is it indeed the final? The end of human? Yeah, that is correct. Yep. Yeah. So it's fitting. We recorded this slightly out of order, so those of you will hear me wax episodic on this next episode. But yeah, I Am a Hero Omnibus Volume 11 is coming out, and that means that I will be picking it up from the library probably about a month or 2 after this is released, because luckily MYPL and BPL have been very, very good about getting it in. And anybody who's a fan of zombie stories and the weird and the unknown will love I Am a Hero just for its unique take on the genre. Definitely give that a shot.
Considering my interest in both Japanese history, culture, and, I always enjoy a good zombie story, you've piqued my interest for sure.
Most definitely. Good timing.
DC, gentlemen?
DC.
By all means.
All right. Well, it's back again. A new volume of Batman Superman on pages 2 and 3 in the DC catalog.
Ooh, yeah, big 2-page splash here. Written by Joshua Williamson, art by David Marquez, and it spills over from the events of the Batman Who Laughs series, issue number 7, also solicited on page 1. And apparently, the Batman Who Laughs has managed to seduce to his cause a couple of DC Universe characters, and now there is a new and more sinister version of the Secret Six at large in the DC Universe, and Superman and Batman have to dig into the seamy streets of Gotham City to ferret them out.
Now, I am thrilled to see the Secret Six back in any form. So that makes me very happy here. And Joshua Williamson as the writer piques my interest. David Marquez as art definitely piques my interest. So I may have to check this out when it comes out.
Well, it's 50% off at dcbservice.com.
There you go.
Now, was it Gail Simone who wrote that wonderful Secret Six series in the previous decade?
She sure did.
It wasn't. Yeah.
That was awesome. That was a great series.
And
I love how they transformed Catman in that series. Oh.
She also wrote a new 52 version of Secret Six for a short time.
Mm-hmm. Not quite as well received.
Yeah,
that's right.
However, I think that's the series that, I mean, it's a spoiler, but who cares because it's been like 5 years. But I think that's the series that reintroduced Elongated Man into the New 52.
Yep, which basically strong-armed Pants into reading it for a little bit longer once he found out what was happening.
Point on page 6. So Neil Adams is writing and drawing Batman versus Ra's al Ghul #1.
Yeah, I think this is stemming out of the story that he wrote in Detective Comics 1000.
Which I have not read yet, even though it's right here on my stand here. It's on my pile.
Yeah.
And how was that story, Ian?
It was good. It's Neil Adams for me is hit or miss. Just because. And I mean, I'll be entirely honest with me. I have to be in the right mood to enjoy something so meticulously Silver Age in style as what Neil Adams tends to do. And I enjoyed what he had in Detective 1000, so I may wind up giving this a shot as well. But I also may very well wait until it's collected to see what everybody has to say about it.
Now, I remember he did a series of miniseries. Was it called Odyssey?
Yes.
Right, and I know that drew mixed reviews. I did not read those myself, so I can't comment on them. But I know some people loved them, some people hated them.
The way people respond to the Odyssey series is the way people responded to Frank Miller's All-Star Batman. It's so all over the place as to whether or not people loved it or hated it. It all depends on your personality and your style of comic book choice. I think whether or not you love or hate that.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I want to point out, just from a retailer business perspective, because DC is now doing facsimiles, and I always love when companies do that, where they're bringing back faithful floppy reprints of signature books. So they're doing Batman 232, classic Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, the introduction of Ra's al Ghul. I wish it wasn't $3.99.
I agree with you.
I think if you want to because I think Marvel does $1 books, don't they?
Yep.
Yeah, I think if you want to introduce new readers or people who are just nostalgic to some of the classic stories, that just seems too expensive to me, just from my peanut gallery position. I don't know. It just seems like it's a little pricey for a reprint floppy.
I agree with you entirely, especially when you can read this exact same issue on the DC Universe app, or you can read it online, and it's probably going to be way cheaper than $3.99 when you buy the back issue.
Yeah, so that just struck me because I love when companies reintroduce, key aspects of their history to the reading public, that price point just struck me as odd.
Yeah.
All right, page 9. Warren Ellis is taking a stab at Wildcats.
Yeah, and is this stemming out of his Wild Storm series, or is this in DC continuity?
I'm pretty sure that it's in the same reality as the Wild Storm.
Got it.
Yeah, it says it from the pages of the Wild Storm.
There we go. Okay.
I read those Wildstorm issues years back. Those were fantastic. I remember really enjoying them.
He's famous for his
Stormwatch.
Stormwatch.
About a recently concluded 24-issue maxi series that Ellis did, though.
Oh, didn't he do stories with these characters many years ago?
He did. Yes.
Okay, that's the ones I'm thinking.
Yeah, he did Stormwatch, which then evolved into the Authority.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
All right.
And he
Stormwatch stuff.
Yeah. He also managed to kill off most of his Stormwatch team in a crossover, and annoyed a lot of his fans at the time.
We should point out on the next page. We didn't really mention this last month. This whole year of the villain theme. What is this about?
The villains take hold. Basically, that's what I've been under the assumption of. I think that this is basically just going to be a year where heroes are taking a little bit of the back burner and have to deal with villains at their most supreme.
Yeah, it's a very large and pervasive outgrowth of Scott Snyder's Justice League run, the whole Legion of Doom storyline he's been doing over there. Like Lex Luthor is beginning to take villainy to the level of cosmic philosophy. And he's actually made contact with like this primal creator deity of the DC multiverse called Perpetua. Actually, crisisologists take note. In the near future, you'll be getting from Peter Rios and myself a couple of reading recommendations here. But one of them is going to be Scott Snyder's Justice League number, I think it's 22, where you get kind of an origin story post-Flashpoint of the DC multiverse, which introduces this Perpetua character in more detail. And so this phase of the whole Year of the Villain thing is subtitled Dark Gifts. And basically, Lex has been upgraded by Perpetua and authorized by her to offer the same sort of upgrade to villains across the DC universe. So it's very much in the vein of the 1995 event Underworld Unleashed, which is a personal favorite of mine, in that we get to see all kinds of classic DC villains and newer DC villains getting a major power boost and then sent out to raise all kinds of cane and beat up on their traditional DC dancing partners. So that's happening in a lot of tie-in issues just in the regular DC line. And there's also some, as we see here on page 10 and 11, some special tie-in one-shots. And both of the ones that I see here, I am definitely going to buy because I'm interested to see what kind of upgrade could be given to just like a costumed crime lord like Black Mask to make him more dangerous. That's written by the Tom Taylor, who has written a bunch of different things for DC, including that thing based on that Justice League video game, the name of which escapes me, and also the Earth 2 series for a while. He's writing this with art by Cully Hamner, and then on page 11, we get a Sinestro special. He acquires the power of the Ultraviolet Lantern, and then he goes and attacks some DC people, and that's written by Mark Russell, the guy who gave us not only the Flintstones miniseries a while ago that got so much acclaim, he also wrote the Wonder Twins miniseries through Wonder Comics. And now he's taking on something in the mainstream DC universe with some art by Brandon Peterson. So those are two big buys for me.
Murd, it's Injustice, by the way. That's the name of the video game.
And let's pause. Let's pause for a minute, brothers, because we need to note, in case people missed what Murd said earlier, he and Peter Rios are gathering to do a recording, and we have to pause and acknowledge how exciting that is, and how I look forward to carving out a considerable amount of time so I can sit back in my vehicle or at home and put on my headphones or listen to this over my stereo, my Bluetooth, the sheer cosmic epic grandeur of what that's going to be. That's all I'm going to say. And Murd, I'm not puffing you up because what I'm stating, as far as I'm concerned, is just truth. So,
well, thank you for that excellent testimonial, Chris. We're planning for it to be one of our shorter episodes, so you don't need to set aside more than, say, 3 hours.
Oh, so it'll be just as long as part 1 of our Shazam Spotlight.
Terrific. Yeah. Oh, that's splendid.
Well, I will be probably planning a nice long walk to delve into that in maybe 2 separate sessions. Maybe a nice walk to Coney Island and maybe a walk over the Manhattan Bridge or something like that. And it's usually my best way to take in a Crisis Tapes when I'm not doing anything else but walking.
By the way, Ian, off the air at some point, you and I have to discuss the fact that I've never been to Coney Island, and I'm going to ask you to be my guide.
Most definitely, so, I will gladly Sherpa.
All right. We'll, to be continued.
Yep.
All right. On page 14, so I had forgotten about this because they didn't have issue 2 in last month's previews. So I guess it's going to be bi-monthly. Superman Year 1, Number 2.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Because it wasn't in last month's previews, correct? No, it wasn't.
No, I don't believe so. I think you're right in it being bi-monthly.
All right. So this is Miller and John Romita Jr., their version of the origin of Superman. So are you guys going to try this?
Well, it's one of my least favorite writers and one of my least favorite artists tackling one of my favorite characters. So I'm going to be way over there while this is going on.
Right.
So I think I'm going to try issue 1. And if issue 1 doesn't strike me, then everybody enjoy.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I mean, Miller is one of my favorite writers because of Born Again and Batman Year 1, and Daredevil, among other things. So, although I haven't really enjoyed his work in recent years with stuff I've read, I still can't get over Holy Terror. But that's just me. But I'm definitely going to give this a shot, at least the first issue. Okay, once again on page 16, another cool facsimile edition, House of Secrets 92, the first Swamp Thing. But again, it's $3.99. So I'm not getting that one.
Well, how about page 17, Titans Burning Rage #1, written by Dan Jurgens with art by Scott Eaton and Wayne Foucher, cover by Dan Jurgens. So immediately, that's what caught my eye was that gorgeous, Dan Jurgens style going for you. This is available at comic shops for the first time. It's Hawk and Dove lead ordinary citizens in an uprising against the rich, but former Doom Patrol member Mento is pulling their strings. This was originally collected in Titans Giant #1 and 2, so I believe that was another one of the 100-page Giants that was available in Walmart. And now, now it's being collected as a one-shot here for comic stores.
All right.
And that is $4.99 for 32 pages.
Yep. But hey, on DCBS it's cheaper.
Yep, we always have that.
Yep. I got one a little earlier, by the way, just to run back because I always need to mention at least one of the DC Zoom titles because I really want this line to succeed. On page 12, we have Black Canary Ignite by a #1 New York Times best-selling author of The Princess Diaries, Meg Cabot. And it's a Black Canary story for the young adult crowd. It's about a 13-year-old Dinah Lance, and she's getting her start in the Gotham City Junior Police Academy, so she can solve crimes just like her dad. And then when a mysterious figure shows up, things get a little messy. So that's a $9.99, 160 pages. Title, so a little bit better of a price tag there for the amount of pages. And Black Canary Ignite, written by Meg Cabot with art and cover by Kara McGee.
All right. I wanted to point out on page 22 and 23, Tom King's epic run on Batman. We have Tony S. Daniel doing the art on pages 76 and 77. He was a Spawn artist too, wasn't he, Ian?
For a while, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
But his style has definitely matured over the years.
Oh, that I knew. Sure.
Oh, yeah.
I just I was thinking just because we talked about Spawn, I was thinking of his name.
Definitely.
And attached to that.
Yep.
The character Gotham Girl on page 23. Forgive my ignorance. Is that spoiler?
No.
Okay.
No.
I wasn't sure about that.
I mean, Gotham Girl. I mean that has to be the Gotham Girl, isn't it? I mean, from what I know of, previous Tom King Batman, wasn't there Gotham and Gotham Girl?
Mm-hmm. Yep, very early in the run.
Yep. Oh, that's right. I brain farted. Yes, I forgive me. Very early in the arc. Yeah, forgive me. I totally brain farted there.
Yeah.
Because when we were reviewing Heroes in Crisis, I remember that spoiler did appear in one of those fantastic, one panel therapy sessions, right?
Yes.
And I hadn't, because I don't read all the DC titles consistently. I hadn't seen that character in a while, so it was. I always liked the spoiler character.
She more recently has been showing up in Young Justice, and I think she's going to be a regular side character in that.
Okay, again, I'm shamefully behind on that title because I know it's excellent. So.
Yep.
All right. What else we got in DC here, gentlemen, in terms of floppies? Anything you want to shout out?
Well, speaking of Ra's al Ghul, looks like he's going to be showing up on page 24 in Batman and the Outsiders #4, written by Brian Hill with art by Dexter Soy. Just to bring that all together. This is issue 4 of that series that, again, was solicited once and then put to the side, and now it's finally coming out. So we'll see how that story goes.
I wanted to mention, I'm jumping here ahead to page 42, Hawkman 15, art by Pat Olive and Tom Palmer. Which is, I love both those artists. I fell in love with Pat Olive ever since I saw his work on Untold Tales of Spider-Man, one of the all-time great Spidey series for me. As a tribute to Shane, the Shade is appearing in this issue.
Oh, wow.
One of his most beloved characters from the legendary Starman series.
I remember buying collections of Pat Olive's Spider-Girl from your very shop at one time, Chris.
Oh, Ian, thank you.
Yep.
If only we had 1,000 more people like you. Anyway.
Yes.
But I love the Spider-Girl series. I was always a big fan of that.
Oh, yeah.
What else we got? Oh, I wanted to mention on page 48. I haven't read issue 1 yet because I haven't received it yet, but I'm very excited for Greg Rucka's Lois Lane. Because it's Greg Rucka, who's a writer that I don't know if he's ever actually disappointed me. I mean, I love pretty much everything I've read by the man, especially, of course, as Lazarus and Queen and Country. But when you have Greg Rucka doing intrigue like this with Lois Lane as an investigative reporter, I'm all in on that. So we'll return to that when I read it. We can talk about it on the air.
I got page 40 because this is an issue of the Green Lantern that immediately catches my eye, and I'm sure it caught Merd's as well.
You better believe it.
12 parallel worlds, 12 Green Lanterns. Enough said.
Sitting in the amen corner over here.
Yeah.
He's testifying, ladies and gentlemen.
And they're going everywhere. Like Tangent Green Lantern is involved with this. Bat Lantern. They're going for pretty much every single version of Green Lantern they can fit into an issue. So I'm way down with that.
Magic Lantern from the Love Syndicate of Dreamworld, as seen in Animal Man #25.
Wow.
Yeah, that's Morris agreed at that character and never really got to play with it, so now's his chance.
Fantastic.
Sold on that.
She'll put on page 54. They're at the 100th issue of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? That's nice to see. I would love Scooby.
Yeah, I'm glad that is still going strong, and ditto the Looney Tunes series.
Yep.
I just saw that they announced new Looney Tunes shorts that are going to be coming out in the Merry Melodies style.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be available on a variety of platforms, mobile, digital, and also broadcast.
Yep.
So whenever I get the chance, I will check those out. I did see several people, you included, Ian, posting links to the sample shorts, and it looks like they're going back to the very early Bugs Bunny formula, and I'm sure the results are going to be hilarious.
Agreed on that.
I wanted to point out, I'm going to jump into trade. You guys have anything else you want to say for floppies?
Yeah, one or two.
Go for it.
Let's see. The aforementioned Justice League series, written by Scott Snyder, with some help from James Tynion IV. Pages 44 and 45, we've got issues 29 and 30. Issue 29 is a Starro story, little breather, before we dive into, in issue 30, the Justice Doom War, where things really heat up in the long-running plot line of the Legion of Doom. And so this is a story written by Snyder and Tynion. Multiversal implications, ties in strongly to the Year of the Villain. So this is a pretty important part of the backbone, one of the vertebrae, if you will, of this whole Year of the Villain macro arc. So one that I would not recommend anyone miss if you're interested in what's happening in the DCU these days. And page 55, I got to call this one out. Shazam #9, written by Jeff Johns, art by Dale Eaglesham. The Marvel family visit the Wazenderlands, which is pretty obviously inspired by those classic fairy lands, Oz and Lewis Carroll's Wonderland. as seen in the classic DC Oz Wonderland War, also starring Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew. This time it's the Marvel family that gets to go there. And that cover by Mark Buckingham, who knows a thing or two about drawing covers featuring fairy tale characters. Cap and Mary being stalked by the Cheshire Cat, the White Rabbit, and W.W. Denslow's Scarecrow. Yeah, that's. I'm reading this series anyway, but I am going to super buy that issue.
Super buy. All right, Murd.
Buy.
Ah, yes.
And Murd, are you going to be buying the Terrifics number 19 on page 62?
Me not know what you talk about, kid. Yeah, I kind of dropped the Terrifics as a monthly title several months ago, but I will definitely come back on board for this, the Bizarro tie-in, part of the Year of the Villain Dark story again. And may I say that on page 58, I'm just as excited for Matt Fraction's take on Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen as Chris is for Rucka's Lois Lane. Definitely. I'll probably be picking up both those 12-issue series in trade, though. I think I'm going to wait on them.
All right.
And one more, just the multiverse traversing continues with Young Justice number 8. So just needed to point that out on 63 because I will be reading it, and I cannot wait.
See, and you really got me stoked because I read issue 1. I enjoyed it. I had the next couple on my stand here, and you've so heavily praised this series. I got to make the time to get back to it.
Well, yeah, especially for that last issue where, again,
yeah, you mentioned that
things go in a direction I was not expecting them to go.
That's what I like to see it get my reading.
Yep.
So wonderful. I want to point out on page 68, a new edition of one of the all-time great DC miniseries, The New Frontier by the late, great Darwin Cook. If you have not read this, I remember when I read this story when it first came out in like that sort of that prestige, not prestige form, but they were like thicker comics. Mm-hmm. I was so floored by not just the beauty of the artwork, but just the loving reverence for the time period that Cook was capturing, and also the politics of that time period. I'm not going to use the word loosely. This is not hyperbole. This is a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. And they made an animated movie that came out of it as well.
Yes, they did.
I was just going to say that I am in the middle of reading that right now, actually. That's the point I've reached in my backlog. I've just read issue number 4 like 3 days ago.
Merge.
And yes, I will agree with you, Chris, that it captures in admirable detail the zeitgeist of the era, as you said, the politics, the economics, the cultural, the climate of Cold War paranoia with shape-shifting Martians and alien-empowered law enforcement agents moving among us. Yeah, and I will also say that my suspicion has been confirmed that it's much better than that animated movie that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I enjoy the animated movie, but no, there's no comparison. I mean,
they had to truncate a lot of story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and that was also one of the first animated movies that they did with their, at the time, new initiative to make animated movies out of old stories. So I think they were really getting the concept down at that point, and only really had about 90 minutes to work with, and that could have easily been a 2.5-hour movie if they really wanted it to be. One of the crown jewels of my collection is the absolute New Frontier I have on my shelf that I got as a birthday present years ago.
That's a beautiful addition.
It really is.
Also wanted to point out, again, for Shane on page 74, Booster Gold, the big full hardcover. So from the classic original series in the 80s, 1 through 12 collected for the first time in color.
Wow.
Plus design material, unpublished story pages, and more. $40.
On 71, just because of the Year of the Villain, anybody who wants to be caught up on the Batman Who Laughs, they're collecting the Batman Who Laughs numbers 1 through 7, and the Batman Who Laughs, the Grim Knight number 1, all in one collection. And that's coming out in hardcover, and I'm sure there'll be a soft cover to follow. And then on the very next page, just because we mentioned animated movies, with a new animated movie of Batman Hush on the horizon, they are putting out a new edition of the trade paperback.
That story is, I mean, in my retail days, you'd say, all right, certain trades are evergreen. You always have to have them in stock. And Hush was always one of those. It was always one of the Batman trades we'd sell constantly.
Oh, yeah.
It's a surprise they're making a animated adaptation of it.
Yep.
Go with DC. How about you guys? Anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's pretty much it. Outside of yet another edition of Crisis on Infinite Earths Dimension, this one a little bit less, a little less crazy than that bound edition from a couple of previews ago.
Yeah, it just seems this is coming a little surprisingly close on the heels of that giant all-inclusive Crisis box. But then
That's
be putting
right.
out just another bare bones hardcover edition.
Yeah. Oh well.
And once again, but mentioning. Go ahead, Mert. I apologize, sir.
Just a Scooby-Doo trade paperback on page 82, including a bunch of selected issues of Scooby-Doo Team-Up.
Well,
Very nice.
I was just meant to say that hearing Crisis mentioned again, my heart's going into euphoric palpitations, if that's even makes sense, because once again, the Murd and the Rios coming together soon in sacred fellowship.
Yeah, communing with one another aboard the Monitor's satellite.
Yes, enough said.
And I'll be quick about it, gentlemen, but 81, The Joker, His Greatest Jokes. Looks like a very interesting collection of Joker stories with stuff by Bill Finger, John Broome, Denny O'Neil, Jerry Conway, Doug Munch, Paul Dini, John Ostrander, and Tim Seeley, with art by Bob Kane, Irv Novick, Don Newton, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, Tom Mandrake, Sammy Basri, and others. So,
all right,
good stuff.
Let's go on to IDW.
Let's do it.
All right, so once again, IDW is doing the kid versions of various Marvel titles. Actually, I got the Black Panther one. It's in my pile. I haven't read it yet, so I'll let you know how that is. The Marvel Action titles.
Very good.
Again, Disney sure in love. So IDW also has this long-running youth Star Wars book, Star Wars Adventures, on page 139. Ian, let me ask you, as a younger man who, is far more well-versed in video games, what is the appeal of Sonic the Hedgehog?
Well, it came out at a formative time for me because that was right when the quote-unquote next generation of my time of consoles had first come out. And that was the Sega Genesis. And it was just a super kinetic, fun platformer along the lines of Super Mario Brothers. And they've crafted a world for it over the years, and they've had some good games and they've had some bad games, but overall, I'm impressed with the comic book world that they've crafted for it over the years. IDW's only had the license for a little while now, which is why it's only issue 20. But the other series that came out under Archie was at least 200 issues long.
I was going to say that ran a long time. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So overall, it's just it's the world and the games themselves that are what keep people coming to Sonic.
All right. Because I'm totally ignorant. I'm just curious. I've seen the character throughout the years in various formats. So
I'd say that Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic and Knuckles are some of the best games I've ever played in my life. They're just great, solid 2D platformers. Good stuff.
All right. What else in IDW you want to talk about, gentlemen?
I've got one on 138, actually. It's called Starcadia Quest, number 1 of 3. Out in the frontier, the toughest jobs in the galaxy are handled by freelance adventuring crews. And on his 16th birthday, the delivery boy known as Star Kid sends out a call for the best recruits he can get at his local Star Dollars coffee shop. An action-packed and hilarious quest begins. So it looks pretty cool. And the writer is James Roberts with art by Aurelio Mazzara.
I want to point out on page, I'm jumping ahead here, 164. You have a graphic biography of Elvis. Legendary graphic novelist, designer, and illustrator Seymour, I'm going to mispronounce his name, I apologize, Quast presents an enhanced portrait of one of America's greatest celebrities. Ooh. I love Elvis's music. Oh.
I actually just got to see one of his cars at the Hard Rock Cafe in Atlantic City.
Oh.
Yep.
Mystery Train is still one of the greatest songs I've ever heard anywhere. So
140.
Go ahead, Ian.
Oh no, I was just going to say, jumping back a little bit on page 144, as part of the 85th anniversary of Donald Duck, they're releasing Young Donald Duck. Writer Francesco Artabani with Stefano Ambrosio and Alessandro Ferrari. And art style wise, it reminds me a little bit of Goof Troop. the animated series from the 90s. But we got some teenage Donald Duck action for you.
Huh. I haven't even heard of Goof Troop. What was Goof Troop?
That was Goofy and his teenage son Max. Moving back to Goofy's old hometown of Spoonerville, right next door to his old high school frenemy Big Pete and his family.
Yep.
It was one of the Disney Afternoon series. It was part of the Disney Afternoon block of animated series in the early to mid 90s.
Yep.
Okay.
Wasn't there also something called Quack Pack, which featured like tween-aged, bratty little versions of Huey, Dewey, and Louie?
There was, and it was way less well received than Goof Troop was.
Murd, no one can make a name as ridiculous as Quack Pack sound as epic and majestic as you do. Bravo, sir.
Oh, well, I repent myself of it immediately.
Well, if
You'd be shriven of attaching any kind of cachet to that show.
See, ladies and gentlemen, when Murd doesn't like something, damn.
Well,
there is no mercy.
I will say that if there is not a animated spin-off of Darkwing Duck on the horizon after recent episodes of the DuckTales reboot animated series, I will be very, very upset because they set it up perfectly in the Duck Knight Returns.
No, I didn't see it, but I saw on the program guide for my Comcast cable down here in Stone Harbor. I did see that episode was aired on Disney XD this afternoon.
Yep, yeah, you'll be pleasantly appreciative of it, especially with the fact that the main plot of it doesn't give away anything. It's just the main plot of the episode is that without anybody really knowing it, Scrooge owned a movie studio. And he's rebooting a dark, gritty version of Darkwing Duck. And they do a spot-on trailer of Christopher Nolan's Batman, essentially, in a style of Darkwing Duck. It's beautiful.
I have to see that. I have to see the rest of Season 1 of DuckTales before I can dive into Season 2. But sooner or later, I will see that.
Excellent.
I want to put on page 164, Ghosts, Classic Monsters of Pre-Code Horror Comics, with art by such legends as Alex Toth and Ross Andrew. Gotta love pre-code stuff. Ugh. And on page 168, damn! I wish I had. This is when you want to have just a huge, like, sweaty mound of disposable income in my fist. John Byrne, Fantastic Four, Artist Select. I mean, we did a spotlight on Byrne's FF run several years back, which was a labor of love for me. This collects art from issues 236, 238, 240, 242. These are all classics. 243, 244, 252. Wow. I wish I could get that. Well.
Page 155, as part of the 35th anniversary collection of Ghostbusters. You've got 4 standalone stories, one with the original Ghostbusters, one with the real Ghostbusters, one with the Answer the Call team, and the Extreme Ghostbusters, all on the ready. These are new stories that have been created for this collection. So if you're a fan of Ghostbusters and want a little bit of a variety, this might be up your alley.
And one of the writers is an old favorite of Murd's, Devin Grayson.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Ian, anything else about the new film?
Nothing yet.
Okay.
We're keeping an eye on that, but nothing as of now.
So all we have is the little teaser they did then. That's it.
Yep. They hadn't even started production when they made that teaser, so I think that was just to wet our whistle and keep us rolling.
Okay.
I haven't seen that teaser. What was in it?
Very little. All you really see is Ecto 1 and essentially a "We're back" to sort of tell us that there's a new Ghostbusters on the horizon.
Okay, ready for Marvel?
Yeah. Although I have one more thing before
please.
then.
He continues to find ways to surprise me, folks.
I love doing it. It is time once again for Muddle the Murd. That's right. It is our trivia portion of this fine program. And Murd, you want to describe how they can muddle the Murd?
Well, Ian, in order to accomplish this storied feat, one would need to email in a collection of no fewer than 3 comics trivia questions for me, the Murd, to attempt to answer. Now, these questions must break down in the following ways. 1 question must be about Marvel Comics, 1 about DC Comics, and the 3rd about comics from some other publisher. And they must break down chronologically into 1 question pertaining to comics pre-1970, 1 question pertaining to comics published between 1970 and 2000 AD inclusive, and 1 question about comics published after 2000 AD. So if you send in questions that fit the preceding parameters, and if I fail to answer so much as 1 of them correctly, you will have successfully muddled the Murd, and you will be mailed a prize.
Excellent. And what's today's prize?
Well, today's prize, we still have a decent number of things left here in this packet sent to us by our anonymous benefactor. And today's contestant will be playing for a lovely pencil sketch drawn by artist Tommy Patterson of Game of Thrones' Jon Snow. Oh. You may have heard. Knows nothing.
Yes, the recently concluded Game of Thrones.
Remember, I'm only on season 6.
Oh, I know. But I think the last time I talked to you, you were on season 5, so you're getting there.
Yeah, I'm getting there. Yep.
Now a quick mention out there before we get started that we did receive a potential entry from Dylan Kelly. However, he only sent us 1 question. So, Dylan, if you want to go ahead and resubmit with 3 questions, we'd be happy to have your attempt to muddle the Murd. But until then, we have one from Mr. Lee Markowitz.
But Dylan, actually, if you do resubmit, don't include the 1 question you sent in earlier as one of your 3 questions, because I've already looked at it.
Yes.
If it's any consolation, I would have gotten it wrong. The question was, in which issue of which Marvel comic did Venom make his first official preview appearance? Just as a hand pushing Spider-Man away. I would have said Web of Spider-Man number 17, but the correct answer was Web number 18. So consider that a mini muddle.
Murd, you're only off by 1 issue number, my friend. Very close.
Yeah. For me and my inability to recall numbers, that's actually pretty good.
Yep. And mini muddles are coming soon, I think, by the same people that make pop vinyls.
Oh, God.
Oh, Lord.
All right, here we go. Question 1 by Lee Markowitz. You're welcome. All right, pre-1970 DC. By the way, when the call goes out for new Muddle the Murd questions, I'm happy to oblige. Good luck, Murd, and that's from Lee Markowitz. In showcase number 17 from December 1958, what is the name of the fictional Incan city where Adam Strange encounters the Zeta Beam for the very first time?
Oh, my. Lee, this is not the best news for you, but I do want to let you know you have given me no small amount of joy and self-pride by asking this particular question. Because I can remember very vividly having read the Infantino illustrated first appearance of Adam Strange, as reprinted in one of those nifty square-bound facsimile editions of Silver Age classics that DC was so fond of printing back in the mid to late 90s. It was in a facsimile reprint of Secret Origins of Superheroes. And I can remember I was saving it as a special treat for me to read during finals week during the spring of my sophomore year at Penn State. We're going back to the spring of 1999. I read that story, and I can remember at that time making it a point to commit to memory the name of that Incan city from which Adam Strange was snatched by the Zeta Beam, because I thought I might be asked a trivia question about it one day. And Lee, you have brought that moment to pass. Huh. You have allowed me to reward my 20-year-old self's assiduity here 20 years later, when I can proudly and confidently state that the name of that Incan ruin was Caramanga.
Correcto.
Woo. So I'm sorry you had to step on that particular landmine of the Murdo memory, Lee. But I promise you've made me a happy man by allowing me to make use of that little nugget that I stashed away all those years ago.
Murd, would you be so kind as to offer us that thrilling pronunciation again, please?
Caramanga.
Oh, I got chills. Okay, thank you.
Happy to oblige, Chris.
Thanks, bro.
Remember, it's Caramanga, not Caramanga. Remember that.
Too right.
1970 to 2000, Marvel. In Daredevil number 229 from April 1986, part of the Born Again story arc.
Oh.
I made sure to pause so Chris could go,
Orgasm. Yep.
Foggy Nelson stops a mugging by throwing a bowling ball at the attacker. What name is printed on the bowling ball?
Oh!
Wow. Well, I'll be using Chris as my lifeline for sure here. I do have the Born Again trade paperback in this building with me. It's just a few short feet away. I'm not going to go open it. This is one. I read this trade a couple of years ago, and I certainly didn't take note of any names on bowling balls at the time. But so yes, this is a guess. Is what I'm basically telling you. But Spalding. I don't know.
Chris, you got a guess?
So Foggy is. I remember there was Christmas time. He was out with Gloriana O'Brien, who he's involved with. He used to be involved with Matt, and he's talking about his old bowling partner, Pork Chop.
That is correct. Pork Chop Peterson.
Yep.
That is impressive, Chris.
Well, thanks, Murr. But considering that is my favorite comic story of all time, if I didn't know that, I should just go over in the corner and take out a short blade and commit ritual seppuku. So
my.
Well, it's not called Muddle the Chris. It's called Muddle the Murd. But good job nonetheless. All right. And finally, 2000 to present, Independent. In the Brody's Ghost series of graphic novels by Mark Crilly out of Dark Horse from 2010 to 2015, the killer that is being hunted is named the Penny Murderer. What is the Penny Murderer's profession?
The Penny Murderer. He runs an arcade.
Ooh, close but no cigar. Chris, any guess?
I have no guess, my friend. I'm sorry.
It's a cold profession. He's an ice cream man.
Oh, all right. But no muddle has taken place here today. Gracias a Caramanga.
Ole!
I saw this picture Murd like in a Zorro outfit. I mean, it's just tremendous.
Yes, I've got a rose clenched between my teeth and castanets in my fingers. But thanks also to Lee Markowitz for answering the clarion call for muddle submissions. And I'm sorry this one didn't quite land the way you wanted to, Lee, but I encourage you to try again.
But Murd, I'm sure Lee is taking great satisfaction in the joy he gave you with that euphoric response you gave.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he just might, Chris. He just might.
Now, to answer your actual original question, Chris, I do have one more thing for IDW, and then we can move on.
Great.
Star Trek Discovery Aftermath #1.
God, I got to watch that show. I still haven't seen it.
I am about halfway through season 1 at this point, and I'm gonna watch season 2 after that. But this is supposed to bridge the gap between season 2 and 3 of the series. It's written by Kristen Beyer and Mike Johnson with art by Tony Chastain. So it's a miniseries in the Star Trek Discovery universe, and we get to see what's happening there.
Now, Ian, you can only watch that on the CBS streaming channel, correct?
You can, however, and again, this is not exactly the easiest way to do it. If you have access to a VPN and you can mask your IP address to be from another country, you can watch it on Netflix.
That's way above my head, everything you just said.
Oh, I know.
I'm still writing my name in feces on the cave wall. So
there are Blu-ray collections, I think, of the first season, if memory serves. So,
well, I mean, when Picard comes out, I'm going to get CBS for that.
Yeah.
So, do we know when that's coming out, by the way, or we don't? I don't think there's a date yet, right?
I don't think there's a date, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's by the end of the year.
Okay. Now, gentlemen, I have to depart, so do you mind if I do a couple Marvel shout-outs, and then and a couple of the things, and I'll let you guys handle the rest? Is that all right?
Go right ahead.
All right, the first thing I want to talk, because let me take a few minutes, because I did see X-Men Dark Phoenix as we get into the Marvel section.
Mm-hmm.
And just to pull back the curtain, because as many listeners know, we often do, episodes dedicated to movie reviews. So I sent an email to the fellas like, okay, do I want to review Dark Phoenix? And Shane's like, no, I'll wait for the digital. And I think Murd was so shell-shocked by the Apocalypse film that he couldn't bear to go and see another one. Is that correct, Murd, in saying that?
That is an accurate assessment of my feelings, Chris.
Yeah, and Ian, I think you're waiting for the $6 movie night at your local AMC.
I am, yeah. I was hoping to see it Tuesday if I had a chance, but I didn't get a chance, so I'll have to wait till next week.
Okay, so I'll give my thoughts just briefly. I won't spoil anything. Like Murd, I really didn't care. Was the last one called Age of Apocalypse?
It was just called Apocalypse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Overall, even though I'm a huge Oscar Isaac fan, I thought he was squandered in that film, but I just found that movie very flat in general. So, and I should mention that Days of Future Past, prior to that, is one of the favorite X-Men films of all the ones they've made, besides probably Logan. So, I went into this, not with not really with any high expectations at all, but I was willing to give it a shot just because I've enjoyed the franchise overall. And I like a lot of the actors they have. I'm a huge fan of Jennifer Lawrence, for example, as an actress, and Fassbender and McAvoy and so forth. So I went into it with, let's see how it is. And I'll say this. I didn't think it was terrible. It was definitely better than Apocalypse. I like Apocalypse. I really didn't care for. This movie, I was engaged throughout. Here's the main issue for me. I think the Dark Phoenix story cannot be done justice in a film. Now, they did their own take on it, and the take that on it was interesting, and there was some interesting twists they added to it that I found that kept me involved. But and McAvoy is wonderful as Xavier. He's fully bald now, like he was fantastic. Fassbender's great as Magneto. Jennifer Lawrence, I think she's kind of done, and I think she's a wonderful actress, and I've loved her as Mystique. I kind of felt like she wasn't that thoroughly interested in this film. It's interesting because they only had her painted blue on her face and her hand. Otherwise she had an outfit on. I imagine that was probably part of the deal. All that aside, what I struggled with, and this is the only thing I really say about it because I don't want to spoil it, is that for me, the Dark Phoenix saga, however you want to interpret that classic story, I think you need such buildup to establish the relationships between the characters and how those relationships are so traumatized by what happens with Jean. I think it's hard to do that in a 2-hour film. I would love to see that story fully done justice, either in like a lengthy animated series or like a live action mini series.
It needs a trilogy of movies. That's what it needs. It literally needs a trilogy of movies devoted entirely to the Phoenix arc. And it wasn't going to happen.
Sure. Yeah. Because when Ratner did that horrific bastardization of it in that terrible movie he did, the third X-Men film, which I've never enjoyed. I can't even get through it now. I've tried to watch it a couple times, but this was definitely better than that by quite a bit. But it just that's the main comment I'll make is that I've yet to see that storyline really done justice the way I think it should be. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll talk about it. Like when you guys all watch it, we can talk about it in more detail. But I will say this: I did not think it was terrible. It kept my interest. It was certainly better than Apocalypse.
I find it interesting that they tried to say in the marketing, and a bunch of people pointed this out, and I had to laugh at it, that they started saying it's the conclusion to the X-Men, arc, or conclusion to the X-Men series of movies, to sort of get the Endgame crowd that saw it as the last Avengers movie. Yeah. To be like, oh, well, this is going to be epic like that one was. And
it was not. But another thing I would say, Ian, is that this movie also because we've got to remember that the X-Men franchise is almost 20 years old.
Yeah.
Because the first one came out in 2000. And we have to go back to how exciting that was at the time. And seeing this last installment reminded me of a couple things. One, the greatest strength for me as a viewer of that whole franchise was Hugh Jackman as Wolverine and Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier. And when they put them together in Logan, and for me, Logan isn't just a great comic film. Logan's a great film, period. That was tremendous.
Yeah.
And Jackman is missed. Whenever he's not in one of these films, for me, there's something lacking. Second, at the end of this, I went to see with Ryan. I turned to him and said, I hope now we're going to see the Kevin Feige machine do their version of the X-Men and introduce them into the MCU. Because I would be very excited if they did that, and I'm sure they could do wonders with it based on everything else we've seen them do so far. So I hope that happens down the road.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yep.
So, but we'll talk more about that down the road when you guys have all seen it. But it was, again, it was not terrible. I didn't think it was. I didn't leave the theater. I wasn't wowed or deeply moved, but nor was I like, God, that was a waste of my life for 2 hours.
That's actually good enough for me to see it for $6.
All right, I've done my job then, sir. All right, a couple things I wanted to shout out before I have to depart. I'm just skipping around here a little bit. So I have to mention Marvel Comics 1000.
Yep.
On page 24 in the Marvel previews. And then if you go back to page 22 and 23, the amount of creators they have contributing to this, including people like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Interesting.
That is a name I did not expect to see on those pages.
But basically any writer artist you're a fan of that has something to do with Marvel, they're on this page if they're alive. Wow. So I wonder now, has it, if you go by numbering, would this have been the 1000th issue of Marvel Comics? I guess it would be, right? Because it came out in 1939.
Yeah, well, that's definitely the marketing scheme they're rolling with. So I'm going to go with yes on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry Stan didn't live to see this.
Agreed.
But certainly going to try that. The other thing I wanted to point out, Murd, I thought of you on page 35, Marvel Monsters #1.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's returning to the Kid Kaiju character and supporting cast introduced in the Monsters Unleashed series of a couple of years ago.
Yep. I also wanted to point out, because I think you guys are a fan of this. I've never read this book. Agents of Atlas is returning.
Yes. Yeah, I read the original and really enjoyed it. This is a bit of a different take on it, but I do appreciate the fact that this is going to be an entirely all Asian super team concept. So some of the characters that were in the original, as seen in the background of that cover, but a mostly new team, and we'll see where it goes.
Ian, the original concept weren't they Atlas era characters?
Not only that, but they were essentially a version of the 1950s Avengers from Avengers Forever.
Oh, okay. I have to go back and read. I've never read that. I've heard plenty of good things.
Yeah.
And by the way, this new one's been co-written by Greg Pak and Jeff Parker. Wow.
Well, I think Parker's just writing the backup story, which is going to feature the original 50s Avengers Agents of Atlas team.
Parker is the perfect writer for that type of story.
Yep.
I also wanted to point out on page 47, I'm reading the Immortal Hulk on Marvel Unlimited, so I'm behind on it, but who cares? But I am every time that a new issue appears in the feed, I stop what I'm doing, I sit down, and I read it, and I'm reminded of why I love comic books. This is one of the best books being produced today. This is the work of these two creators, Ewing and Bennett. This is probably the work of their career. Whenever they take an iconic character and they sort of reimagine or breathe new life into it, and they innovate, I'm so on board. And this is just thrilling to read. I mean, are you guys reading this book, Immortal Hulk?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit behind, but I'm probably about where you are now because I bought that trade and I'm about halfway through it. And I think that's about where the Unlimited app is at the moment. I just got done with the fight with the Avengers.
Unlimited is a bit ahead of you then, because I'm an issue or two ahead of you.
Got it.
Murd, I remember you bought a trade when I was with you at one point.
Yeah, that's right. You guided me to the shop where I purchased it. Yeah, and I devoured that second trade long since.
Okay, so I'm sure you enjoyed it then as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to mention to listeners, if you haven't tried this series, and I don't care if you're a Hulk fan or not, it's a masterful example of the medium at its peak. Because again, to take such a well-established character, and what Ewing and Bennett do so effectively is they go right back to the roots of the Hulk. So they're not changing anything. It's like what Priest did with Black Panther. You mine the rich history of the character, and you realize something new there. It takes my breath away. It's an amazing book. So I highly recommend that to everybody. That's my little verbal orgasm for that. The other thing I wanted to mention in Marvel, and I'll mention a few other things, and I'll have to head out. But Ian, take a look at the cover on page 59.
Rolling down. Ooh, that's beautiful. Oh boy.
So I think what we have to do, because you and I have been talking about each issue on the Comic Talks, as we read them. This is Spider-Man Life Story number 6, the 2010s. I look forward to all of us discussing this story when it's done, and we kind of give like an overall review of it. But this book is so good, I almost weep when I read it.
Sounds like a book of the month to me, Chris.
Yeah.
To be entirely honest, I'd be 100% okay with making that our return to the book of the month.
What a great idea!
Once it's collected. So if all in favor, I'd be down for that.
I raise my hand and say aye. So, all right. Before I go, a couple you guys can, of course, and you're more than capable of manhandling the rest of Marvel, but I just wanted to mention a couple of the quick things in the rest of the book, and I'm sorry I have to go. I just got family obligations. I wanted to point out on page 339, deep in the other publisher section, a company called Los Scarabeo, I may be mispronouncing that, the Little Bighorn graphic novel, written and drawn by Paolo Serpieri, that's the full name. The cover art is gorgeous of Custer. And I always love when people take on history in the comic book medium. And I'm fascinated about a Little Bighorn. I've studied it extensively. I've been to the actual battlefield site, which I recommend to anyone. It's breathtaking because you when you go there, because the way they've set up the field, you can envision the battle in the sense that they show you where Custer fell, where this guy fell. It's very eerie and chilling, actually. So this is something I may try. Art on the cover looks gorgeous. The other thing I wanted to point out, because I always have to, it's just mandatory, is Tomorrow's. This is exciting. On page 374, Jack Kirby's Dingbat Love trade paperback. These are I'm reading from the copy here. These are the final complete unpublished Jack Kirby stories in existence. Presented here for the first time, included our 2 unused Dingbats of Danger Street tales, Murd Ready, Kirby's final Kid Gang group, inked by Mike Royer and D. Bruce Berry, and newly colored for this book, True Life Divorce, the abandoned newsstand magazine that was too hot for its time, reproduced from Jack's pencil art, and as a bonus, we've commissioned Mike Royer, who was Kirby's inker from the 70s, to ink one of those stories, and Soul Love, the unseen 70s romance book so funky even a jive turkey will dig the untouched inks by Vince Collette and Tony DiZuniga. And John Morrow, of course, can do an examination. I've read about these stories. Like I've always read about Soul Love and True Life Divorce. Now I get a chance to actually read them. Oh, this is exciting. Wow. I'm now supplicating at my desk to the spirit of Tomorrow's. Amazing. Look at back issue 116. Superheroes versus Monsters.
Yeah, complete with gorilla cover.
Which, Jamie D., that's for you, honey.
Mm-hmm.
But Godzilla versus Marvel, Dracula, Batman Vampire, Marvel Scream Up, The History of Baron Blood. Oh, great. And finally, American Comic Book Chronicles, the 1990s. Again, if you're a lover of the history of comics, these books are indispensable. They are deep. They take an era and they go in depth into that era, and they also provide you an historical context in terms of what's going on in the country that it was informing the culture of that time. Mandatory reading if you love the history of the American comic book. Gentlemen, I now regretfully close my previews. I place it on the side of my desk so I can do my order later on. And I now must shed my geek armor and put on the raiment of a parent and a spouse. And that was ridiculously overblown, but No.
I felt like I should have been playing music in the background.
But I like to make, the ordinary into the fantastic for my own sense of hyperbole.
You'd think you were a fan of Stan or something. I don't know.
No. I don't know what you're talking about. Now you're going to start having me use the word Inglenook any chance I possibly can. All right. Brothers, enjoy yourselves, and I look forward to talking to you both very soon.
Hear, hear.
Good night, my friends. Take care.
Good night, Chris.
Ciao.
All right, Murd. As usual, it's just you and me now.
All right, let's soldier through.
Okay. We should mention Absolute Carnage so we don't have to mention it for the rest of the book. But
as it does seem to take up about an eighth of the page count here, doesn't it?
It sure does, yeah. I mean, talk about something that I'm surprised they didn't do 20 years ago. Essentially a sequel to Maximum Carnage. Absolute Carnage #1, written by Donnie Coates with art by the amazing Ryan Stegman, who is a Super Show veteran. We go back into a symbiotic world that we haven't seen in a while, and this is taking over most of Marvel Comics, it looks like, this month, as Carnage reigns over the Marvel Universe. 60 pages, so that's something.
Yeah. Yeah, issue number 2, 40 pages for $4.99. It's slightly more typical.
Yeah.
They're actually opening this Marvel Previews catalog with half a dozen preview pages of story. I mean, they don't that often do that. Really hoping people buy into this event, I would say.
Most definitely, yeah. Marvel needs a win with their crossovers. I know that I haven't read the one that just concluded based on Jason Aaron's Thor run that I'm sure is excellent, but I don't know how well it did in sales. So maybe they're hoping with the 90s nostalgia of Carnage they'll get people aboard the train for this one.
Yeah, I'd say that is exactly what they are banking on, Ian, the 90s nostalgia angle. And it is strong enough with me that I will go ahead and buy the 4-issue tentpole miniseries here, but that is as far as 90s nostalgia is going to take me.
Yeah, I don't think I have an interest in Absolute Carnage versus Deadpool, for instance.
Yeah, that's an excellent example of something I'm not going to be buying, Ian, yes.
Well, the miniseries itself is 40% off on DCBS, I believe, for $2.39 if you want to get in on the ground floor with issue 1.
There's a whole big checklist of all the different tie-ins coming out in the month of August on page 17 if you're interested. And there's all this Hickman X-Men stuff that's going on, House of X, Powers of X, or as I like to call them, Hawks and Pox. Those are hitting their second and third issues in August.
You're debating whether or not you're going to be picking it up?
Well, yeah, in single issues or in trade. Hickman has never really been my favorite creator of mainstream superhero comics. But I'm kind of curious as to what big ideas he'll be bringing to the X-Men sector of the Marvel Universe. It's probably the one part of the Marvel Universe I would most like to see a creator like Hickman working on.
He certainly did an excellent job with the Fantastic Four, and I think that that those sensibilities can be applied to the X-Men if done right. And I think that that if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Hickman, because his Avengers run, including, the combo of Avengers and New Avengers when he was writing it was just excellent. The universe-spanning story that he had there. It really worked for me at the time, so we'll see what he gets to do with the X universe here. I'm hoping for good things, and the art certainly looks in my wheelhouse. So we'll have to see how it goes after the 6 issues conclude for both of these. And then, of course, Marvel Comics 1000, as has been mentioned, with every single creator that has ever written or drawn anything for anybody, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, each of them is drawing one body part on one panel.
That's not too far from the truth. Everything in here is a 1-page story. if I know if I knew the premise correctly. So the collection of creators that they were pumping out on social media are going to be the ones behind those individual one-page stories. It may lead to a bigger story, or it may just be individuals, but I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, and if you order through dcbservice.com, you'll be finding out for 50% off, a mere $4.99 instead of $9.99.
That's doable.
Yeah, and I think I am actually going to do it, too.
Excellent. I will be waiting for the digital copy, but I may also just part of me thinks that Marvel Comics 1000 will be a nice thing to have on a shelf somewhere. So I may actually splurge and buy the the physical copy, but I'll have to decide the week of. Fantastic Four, Yancey Street #1, written by Jerry Duggan, with art by Greg Smallwood. Mentioning it just for the fact that it's a Yancey Street story with the Fantastic Four, and that's enough to get my interest. And Jerry Duggan's written some pretty good stuff over the years, mostly in Deadpool and a couple other places. But I'm curious to see what his take on the Thing and the Fantastic Four is.
And it is a self-contained one-shot story, which is always nice to see.
Yes, it is.
More Peter David goodness on page 31. It's part 2 in a trilogy of one-shots featuring a character called Prodigal, who encounters a variety of Marvel characters, part of his arcing journey through the Marvel Universe and its history. Beyond that, I don't really know much about what or who Prodigal is and what his aims are, but he's written by Peter David. So, bye. I say.
Yep, I mentioned the Fantastic Four issue of Prodigal Son last month with Chris, so this has me intrigued. And very next page, Spider-Gwen, or Ghost Spider, or whatever you want to call her, is officially making her way to the 616. I don't know if it's going to be for good or if it's just going to be for now, but apparently something happened on her home Earth that's making her want to go elsewhere, so she's going to be spending a decent amount of time on the main Marvel Earth for a while. So I'm sure that the success of the Spider-Verse movie has nothing to do with that.
Totally coincidental.
Yep. But the art looks pretty cool, and Takeshi Miyazawa, I feel like I've seen his work a couple of times. Very manga esque style, and not familiar with Seanan McGuire, the writer, but the art sells me alone. Marvel Monsters was already mentioned, as was Agents of Atlas, so I can go past that.
Major X #0 on page 38, which is pretty much just a reprint of 2 issues of Wolverine from somewhere in the 90s, with a little framing sequence tacked on featuring the Major X character.
That is one Major X, as in that is one Major X on his forehead, and I don't know how he sees anything.
I have to assume it's ruby quartz.
It's gotta be. But yeah, that's pure Liefeld action, and if that's your bag, then they sure have you covered.
Yep. Liefeld loyalists lay on.
Yep. And even better, on this cover, he drew feet.
Yeah, I can see them. They're right there at the ends of his legs. Amazing. They haven't been foreshortened out of existence.
Nope. Although he still doesn't know how to draw an ankle. That's there's some weirdness going on there.
Yeah, you're right.
Much more interested on what's on the very next page. Page 39, Future Foundation #1, written by Jeremy Whitley with art by Will Robson. It's spanning from the pages of Dan Slott's Fantastic Four. This follows the Future Foundation that was left behind after Reed, Sue, and family returned to the main Marvel universe. So this is going to be their universe-spanning adventures of the rest of the crew. And this is all characters that were originally introduced in Hickman's Fantastic Four. And I want to see where this goes, because these are some cool characters.
Including the intelligent dragon man, the disembodied head of a Moloid, and a couple of members of Power Pack.
Yep.
And speaking of Power Pack, if you turn ahead to page 42, if you feel like some more original recipe Power Pack adventure, here's the Power Pack Grow Up one-shot. which features work by Power Pack creators Louise Simonson and June Brigman. So there's a tale in the early career of the Power Pack by those two creators, and some slightly more contemporary visuals by artist Guri Huri, illustrating a story also written by Louise Simonson. So this is a part of Marvel's 80th anniversary celebration, celebrating the history of their first preteen super team.
Always happy to see Wheezy back on the Power Pack.
I'm just happy to see those characters used anywhere, any form.
Yep. Julie Power has also been showing up in Runaways lately, so she's been around, but yeah, not all of them have seen the light of day of late. They're doing a director's cut of Immortal Hulk, so for anybody who wants to get in on the ground floor and see some of the behind-the-scenes action of what it took to make these issues, they're going to be doing the first 6 issues all as director's cuts. So probably some cut scenes and some extra additions in there. So if you haven't picked it up yet, then this will be a way to do it.
It's highly recommended by all of us here on the show, and the majority of our listeners as well. The Immortal Hulk is a runaway hit.
Yep, most definitely. You got anything before page 52? Because if not, I'm just going to jump right to it.
Well, on page 50 and 51, I was going to drop a mention here to Nick Spencer's current Amazing Spider-Man series. He's been drawing it more and more back in the direction of Will Spencer has been drawing it more and more back in the direction of his former Superior Foes of Spider-Man series. I mean, he's made Boomerang Spider-Man's roommate, for one thing, and now we've got the female Beetle seen in Superior Foes. Showing up with their own version of the Sinister Syndicate, a bunch of female Spider-Man opponents, including one of my favorite characters, the White Rabbit. So, yeah, I'll definitely be checking that out. Sort of a supervillain take on Ocean's 8, if you will. So, yeah, and then there's also Spidey and Boomerang versus the Kingpin in issue number 51. All right, go ahead to page 52, Ian.
52! I'd mentioned in previous the retelling of the Spider-Man video game that Marvel had been doing. Well, here are the first original stories in that universe. Yet again, written by Dennis Hopeless, who seems to be going by his given name more often now, as you pointed out earlier, Murd. So, Dennis Hopeless Hallam, with art by Emilio Laiso, and this explains the creation of one of the exclusive suits to that video game. How and why Peter Parker created the Velocity suit that shows up in that. And yeah, this is the beginning of a bunch of ongoing new stories in the Spider-Man PS4 universe. They're calling the Gamerverse. And I'm sure there'll be more miniseries to follow. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if there's an ongoing after a while.
Well, if they bothered to give the Gamerverse a name, it does stand to reason that they'll be expanding that universe in as many different titles as possible.
Here's something interesting. On page 61, Sensational Spider-Man Self-Improvement #1. This is all part of the 80th anniversary celebration, as they actually went back into the archives and found Randy Schuler's idea of Spider-Man donning a black suit before Secret Wars, and they built a story around it. So now Peter David and Rick Leonardi are bringing that story to light, and they're also going to reprint a DeFalco and Friends black costume story along with that. So, yeah, interesting idea and concept to sort of go back to a unrealized idea from years old and bring it to light.
And a fan submission, no less.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and good on them. This is a 48-page comic for what is the standard Marvel cover price for a 40-page comic, $4.99.
Yeah.
So, good on them for not charging us extra for the DeFalco and Friends reprint.
Yeah, I'm actually probably going to pick this up just to see what it's like, because anything that's quote unquote from the archives, I always tend to go for. Like, I remember a couple of years ago they released a unreleased Thunderbolts issue that I wound up picking up that had been in the archives for a while and read through that. And there were, I think there was a Hawkeye and an Iron Man. Every now and then they, find these things that are hiding in a back corner somewhere and decide to go with them.
It is of interest.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that Acts of Evil has nothing to do with You're the Villain.
Again, total coincidence.
Yep. But we do get a She-Hulk story out of it, so that's at least a bonus.
Yeah. And Deadpool riding an alicorn, and yeah, I was a fan of the Acts of Vengeance crossover event that Marvel did way back in the day. It's one of the crossover series that our friend Matt got library bound.
Yeah. And
so pretty much the entire Acts of Vengeance story is available for any geek to read at any time in the CGS studio. But yeah, the team-ups, the matchups, I should say, the oppositions of hero and villain that they've picked for these Acts of Evil annuals are kind of uninspired, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So, yeah, I think I'm probably just going to let them stay on the rack.
Probably a good idea. Scrolling down, not a lot of other single issues off the top of my head. Catch maybe. Ooh, actually, you do your ooh, and then I'll do my ooh.
Okay. They might even turn out to be the same ooh. But there's a double-page spread here on pages 76 and 77. The 13th issue of Dan Slott's Fantastic Four series, we get The Thing versus the Immortal Hulk.
It was my ooh.
Hopefully. How did I know? We're just pretty well in sync here, I must say.
Yeah, right.
This will give us hopefully Slott will consult a bit with Al Ewing, for his current take on the Hulk, and to just try to work that into this latest bout between Thing and Hulk. And that is the kind of thing that Dan Slott usually does. He does his homework. He consults his fellow creators. It'll be interesting to see how this new horror-founded take on the Hulk, how that version of Hulk is going to respond to renewing his old series of bouts with the Thing.
And a name on the art actually interests me. Sean Isaac is an artist who I met at New York Comic Con a couple of years ago. And if memory serves, I believe he worked on a comic with Vito Del Sante, which was sort of a send-off of Nightwing. I believe the main character was the Doberman was the Batman character, and I'm trying to remember the name.
Oh, you're talking about Stray here.
Yes, thank you, Stray. Yes, there we go. Yep.
Action Lab Entertainment.
Yep. Yeah. So what? Good on Sean Isaac. I'm happy to see him jumping on something like Fantastic Four. That's awesome.
Here. Not seeing too many other oohs. I see on page 84 that the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl is beginning its final arc. It's going to end at issue 50, it would appear.
Okay. Oh, and actually, it turns out Sean Isaacs is now an exclusive Marvel artist, so I guess I'm going to be seeing him a lot.
Is he classified as a young gun?
I believe anybody under the age of 50 is a young gun.
Okay.
Shuri's going to be in Ironheart number 9 on page 85. Eve L. Ewing and Luciano Vecchio on art there. So two youthful black characters crossing over. So that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm kind of enjoying Riri's look of discomfort surrounded by the Dora Milaje.
Yeah, same here. She's like, I don't know if I belong. X Factor number 87 facsimile edition. Here's one. Marvel Tales X-Men number 1. Written by Roy Thomas, Joe Duffy, and Chris Claremont. So I think this is mostly reprints. Looking at it here, yes. But at the same time, they're good reprints. So it may be worth the cover price to you folks out there. It's 80 pages for $7.99, so it'll be 40% off on DCBS. But some classic X-Men stories being collected here, and I think there may also be a new one in there as well, along with it. So, and a very, very, very pretty cover as well that caught my eye in the first place.
By Jen Bartel.
Yep.
Whoever that happens to be. But it is a pretty image, I agree. Evocative of those late 60s days when Marvel could claim Neil Adams as an X-Men artist.
Yeah.
Looks like we're getting a Roy Thomas and Neil Adams X-Men story, as a matter of fact. And for some reason, issue number 2 of Fallen Angels. Random. Pretty sure that was a mini-series, so we're reprinting the second issue of a mini-series?
Yeah, that's a bit weird.
And then that's sandwiched in between the Thomas and Adams story and Claremont and Jim Lee Uncanny X-Men issue from 1981.
Going down, we got more one-shots in the Star Wars realm. General Hux, Poe Dameron, and was there one more in there? No, those are the two. So, yeah, Star Wars Age of Resistance, General Hux #1, and Poe Dameron #1, both written by Tom Taylor. Art by Leonard Kirk on the General Hux, and art by Ramon Rosanas on the Poe Dameron.
Yeah, I was really enjoying those Age of Rebellion one-shots by Greg Pak and Various. This is probably where I jump off.
Fair enough.
Getting into third trilogy territory.
Well, I'm still hoping they're going to stick the landing on the third trilogy, but we shall see.
Oh, yeah, I will be there to find out.
Mm-hmm.
You like that trailer?
Yes, indeed. Ooh, I'm in the collections at this point, but one of the collections is on sale December 2019 on page 112. It's Marvel Masterworks Fantastic Four Volume 21, and and the cover that they used was actually one of the first Fantastic Four comics I owned. I got a bunch of used comic books from a friend of my father, and one of them was this issue of Fantastic Four thrown in there just randomly. So I actually remember reading and enjoying that issue a couple of times before I started picking stuff up myself. So that's nostalgia for me right there, but it's a good era of Fantastic Four to be covering a Marvel Masterworks Volume 21 anyway. The Byrne era, and it covers 232 to 240 of Fantastic Four, and Annual 16 and Fantastic Four Roast, which I hope is a roast of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, that's why we see Fred Hembeck's name up there.
Got it.
Creators, it was done for the funny.
Good. I didn't think that they were actually roasting them on a spit.
Yeah, well, although that is kind of what the cover suggests. Courtesy of Diablo there. Yes, and I know Jamie D would be applauding your nostalgia there, Ian, because we all know how special John Byrne's work was to him, especially his FF run.
Absolutely.
First collection that caught my eye here in this section was on page 110, the one they chose to open the section with, Timely's Greatest, harkening back to those heady Golden Age days when Marvel did not yet exist as such and was called Timely Comics. The Golden Age Human Torch by Carl Burgos, Omnibus. It is 1,008 pages of the earliest Human Torch and Toro stories. From issues 1 through 34 of Marvel or Marvel Mystery Comics, several issues of the Human Torch solo series, some All Winners Adventures, etc., etc. 1,008 pages for $150 before DCBService.com discount. Yeah, nice. I'm not really one to dig into hardcovers, so if this were a paperback, I'd be buying it immediately. But that's just something for my fellow Golden Age lovers to take note of. Very seminal early Marvel Timely stuff.
Good thing to celebrate when you're turning 80.
Yes, that's the perfect thing, actually. This is some of the very earliest Marvel comics there are.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, page 115, Chris would be asking me point blank if he were here, if I were planning to buy this. This is more Jim Starlin, written by Starlin, penciled by Alan Davis. It's Thanos the Infinity Ending original graphic novel in hardcover form, concluding Starlin's latest tripartite take on one of his greatest creations, Thanos, with Adam Warlock and Pip the Troll and Eros Star Fox along for the ride. And yes, I am indeed going to buy it.
I mean, how could you not? I mean, it's Starlin and Alan Davis.
Right?
That's really good.
Fantastic team and great character. And well, I've picked up the last couple of OGNs that Starlin and Davis have done, so how could I do less than pick up this one too?
We have on page 119 the first volume of the latest Captain Marvel series, written by Kelly Thompson, with pencils by Carmen Carnero and Ana Paula Martello. And this collects issues 1 through 5 of the latest Captain Marvel series. And I've been meaning to give this a shot because I actually heard some pretty positive things about it. So this might be a good way to do it.
Yeah, by all means.
Yep.
Love the cover.
Oh yeah, very very striking pose and just in general anything Amanda Conner is immediately going to catch my eye. 17 War of Realms trade paperbacks that I can just go ahead and skip. Oh, you know what? Let me do one more, just because this is a series that again I need to pick up eventually, more for the subject matter than anything else. The Unstoppable Wasp is mentioned near the end of this collection here. I believe it's on page 135 or 134. It's hard to tell when they don't put numbers on every page.
No, it's on both pages, so you're right no matter what.
There we go. Okay, but this is also written by Jeremy Whitley, who's doing the Future Foundation series, and it actually goes into bipolar disorder, and that's a subject that's not often broached by superhero comics, and essentially establishes that is what. Hank Pym has dealt with for most of his life, and now his daughter is dealing with it as well. Certainly explains all the crazy, transformations that Hank Pym has gone through over the years. So it's I'm interested to see how Whitley touches on that in the pages of this series, and the art as well is very, very striking and manga-esque. So I'm interested in what they have to offer. Now I'm done.
All right.
Okay.
So does that mean we move on to the rest of the book?
Let us go to the rest.
All right. First out of the rest of the book gate here is the Dynamite Entertainment section. And they're leading with a 5-issue miniseries starring one of those public domain Project Superpowers characters they trot out from time to time. The Golden Age Daredevil, currently known as the more trademark-friendly The Death-Defying Devil. So this 5-issue mini is being written by Gail Simone with art by her semi-frequent collaborator Walter Giovanni. I like the character. I love the writer. I'm in for 5 issues.
Oh, absolutely. I don't really know. I don't really know a lot about the character, to be honest. So this may be my introduction to it.
Well, you actually used Golden Age DD and his publisher Lev Gleason as part of a Muddle the Murd question you hit me with once.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I don't remember that, so maybe I did. All right.
Yeah, he's got a very striking costume. He fights with boomerangs, which is always a cool weapon. And, in his Dynamite incarnation, as conceived by Alex Ross and Jim Kruger, he's mute. Simone, as she says in an interview published here in this Dynamite section, she says she's kind of challenging herself to write this character without dialogue, since dialogue is kind of one of the things she's best known for as a writer.
Interesting, yeah.
Opportunity to expand her skill set a little. And the first issue is 50% off at dcbservice.com.
I am very interested. We've got James Bond 007 Volume 1 on page 185, written by Greg Pak with art by Mark Lamming and Stephen Mooney. We've mentioned some of the James Bond books in recent memory, but this is a collection of that first volume that's being solicited. So worth picking up in hardcover just to see that gorgeous art and read that Greg Pak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Greg Pak really fleshing out the character of Oddjob pretty well in this first arc.
Nice.
And he's doing something of the same thing for Goldfinger in the succeeding arc, the 10th issue of which is also being solicited this month.
It's very hard for me to not sing that name whenever I say it.
Or at the very least followed up with, not bad.
Exactly.
Now, this is interesting example of a creator stepping outside the comfort zone here. On page 196, we have Garth Ennis doing an all ages OGN.
What?
It's called, yeah, you heard. It's called Earth, and it's about this weird little blob of protoplasm who existed on Earth in primordial times before the dawn of vertebrates. And Earth and his three amphibious friends, Figwillop, Quah, and the Pooper, take their first nervous steps out of the ocean, thus beginning an adventure into the primordial world. This has art by Rob Steen. It's 48 pages for $6.99, and it's Garth Ennis. Probably his least obscene.
To say the least, yeah. I think this does officially prove that Garth Ennis can do everything, because I don't think he's ever written anything all ages in his life before now.
Yeah, it's kind of irresistible to find out what an all-ages book written by Garth Ennis is going to look like.
Well, now we get to find out. There's a collection of that Betty Page, The Princess and the Pinup, on page 197 that we mentioned, I believe, the first issue of at some point on a previews. So now that's all collected for everybody. Betty meets the Queen.
Yeah, I didn't know that I wanted to see a Betty Page meets Elizabeth II team up, but there it is in full color.
That's the thing about comic books. You don't know you need it until it's there. A whole lot of Elvira stuff, and I think I'm done with Dynamite.
Sounds good to me. On to the Boom.
Onto the Boom, and starting it off with Angel #1 on page 206. The returning Angel to the world of comic books, and I believe this is also part of that Buffy reboot that's out of Boom Studios. So we get to see this take on the beginning of Angel's vampire life, and seeing where he is in the world of the Buffyverse in this particular instance. Written by Brian Edward Hill with illustration by Gleb Melnikov.
And they are giving us a binge-worthy 4-issue infusion of this new Angel. It looks like they're going weekly with it here. Oh, wow. No, I'm misreading it. They're just soliciting this in advance. The first issue is on sale May 29th.
Okay, so never mind.
That's kind of impossible. So I don't know what to make of this now. It kind of looks like I thought they were soliciting 4 issues in 1 month, but now they're telling us that they're on sale May 29th, June 26th, July 31st, and August 28th, respectively.
I believe they are instead reminding us that these issues exist.
All right, and in the case of at least one of them, retroactively.
Yeah, and now I'm going to find out that I mentioned on a previous previews of Angel #1 to begin with, but if they did, then they won. Job well done. I'm sure you might have seen it already on page 210.
That's exactly what I'm looking at, Ian.
Go ahead.
No, be my guest.
All right. Once and Future #1 of 6, written by Kieran Gillen, illustrated by Dan Mora. We've got Kieran Gillen going fantasy as he explores the mysteries of the past, the complicated truths of our history, and the power of family to save the day, especially if that family has secret bunkers of ancient weapons and decades of experience hunting the greatest monsters in Britain's history. So in.
Yeah, it is a great creative team. The premise sounds fantastic, like an elderly lady monster hunter teaming up with her museum curator Wuss of a grandson to take down an ancient Arthurian villain who is, from the sound of the text here, possibly somewhat less villainous than we're being led to believe. So, yes, this, and it's only a 6-issue commitment, too. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to jump on board with that.
And the colors on this issue from the preview pages are stunning. There's so much depth to what they're bringing to the table, and everything is vibrant and great use of hues. And I'm so in on the art.
Yeah, I guess we can't give credit to the colorist unless it turns out to be Dan Mora, who's also doing the pencil and ink.
Exactly.
But yeah, I see what you're saying about the great use of violets and the twilight scenes here on pages 212 and 213.
Yep.
Yes. Pages 220 and 221. Some more content from the World of the Cartoon Network original miniseries Over the Garden Wall, which I love. There's a 5-issue miniseries and also an original graphic novel. Both of them will set you back approximately $15. I'm going to buy at least one of them.
I'm surprised they haven't gone back to this yet. And I mean, for all I know, they could be working on something right now. But it was such a fun miniseries for Cartoon Network to begin with that I'd love to see more of it.
It's just perfect autumn viewing for me. I've rewatched it several times on the homemade VHS tape that I've made of it.
Well, Summer Camp Island is coming back in a week or so. By the way, if that's a show you haven't watched before, by I think one of the character designers of Adventure Time, if memory serves. But it's a very obtuse, fun, summer camp world that they create, and it's sneakily become one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows.
Actually, I don't think I'd ever even heard of it until you mentioned it just now. Yeah, the disadvantage I'm working with, Ian, is that Comcast subtracted Cartoon Network and Adult Swim from my basic cable package at home in PA. Yeah, when I'm down here in New Jersey, I can watch it again. So maybe I'll find an opportunity to experience Summer Camp Island during the summer.
Well, it's good timing. It premieres on June 23rd for season 2, and I think they've been showing a bunch of the older episodes in rotation to lead up to it.
All right, I'll keep an eye out for those. Anything else under Boom?
Checking right now. The Art and Many Other Mistakes of Eric Powell immediately has me intrigued. Written and illustrated by Eric Powell, covered by Eric Powell as well. And it's about the life of Eric Powell. So that he's been an artist, the artist and creator of Goon for years, and now he's telling his tale. So I'm interested in what his life has to tell.
So it's an illustrated autobiography.
Essentially the case, yeah. That's on page 225.
Very cool.
Yep. And Wizard Beach, I'll mention. Written by Sean Simon, illustrated by Connor. It probably is Connor Nolan. But yet again, I'm struck by the image of the cover alone. And when Hexley Daggard Ragbottom, a high-strung young wizard, wants to put an end to the frost of dark forest he calls home, he seeks out his Uncle Salazar, the greatest wizard of all time. But Uncle Sally has abandoned his old life for one of leisure, surfing, and napping. Why not?
Yeah, why not indeed? That's I actually bought this miniseries in single-issue form.
Ah.
And, it's since I spend so much of my time in a seaside town, the concept appealed to me. I will tell you, Ian, from what I've gleaned from my skimming of the 5-issue miniseries, it's maybe not as much fun as it looks like at first blush, but it is some fun.
Okay.
And it's worth reading.
Sounds good to me. All right, and that'll end us out in Boom. I will make a quick mention that Jim Henson's Beneath the Dark Crystal, number 12 of 12, is coming out this month, so it will be collected soon.
Excellent. I'll be waiting.
Yes.
All right, so now we really get into the back of the book.
We sure do.
I noticed on page 242, beginning the alphabet drag down the smaller publishers, under Abrams Books for Young Readers, there's a little 40-page picture book called You Are My Friend, It's about young Fred Rogers of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. How bullied, isolated, overweight little Freddie Rogers recessed into his piano playing and the fantasy world he created for himself, and how that fantasy world eventually grew into one of the most beloved children's television programs of all time. I guess it's kind of like Won't You Be My Neighbor for actual children.
Outstanding. I am glad that book exists. I'm also glad that documentary exists. It was excellent.
No, you and me both, Ian. It's rare that I go to see a documentary in the theater, but I definitely made an exception for that just about a year ago, in fact.
Yeah, I saw it digitally shortly after its theater run. I tried my hardest to see it in the theater, and I went to look it up the weekend we were going to go, and it literally just left that weekend. So close. Yeah. Right on top of that, though, Murd, Shazam: The Golden Age of the World's Mightiest Mortal by Chip Kidd. Chip Kidd, is known for these retrospective books, and here he is doing just that with Shazam, going through the history of the character and piecing together the first fully authorized celebration of ephemera, artwork, and rare one-of-a-kind toys, and recaptures the magic that was the power of Shazam.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's kind of a tribute to the first wave of Shazam tie-in merchandise.
Yep. From
the good old Fawcett days. Now, I do have a copy of this book at home.
Nice. Under our buddies at Action Lab, Adventure Finders: The Edge of Empire by Rod Espinoza. It's Clary is bubbly as Barbie, noble as She-Ra, and as violent as any anime warrior princess you've ever seen. I think that sold me. Bubbly violence, right up my alley.
Yeah, so in one previews catalog, we've had pretty violence and now bubbly violence.
Yes, we do. And right underneath it, more Cash and Carry by Sean Pryor.
Excellent.
Always happy to see a new Sean book. The aforementioned Wando has an Aftershock comic coming out on page 248. Bad Reception, #1. Love the name. It's the celebrity wedding of the century, set in an undisclosed remote location with no access to Wi-Fi, cell phone reception, or the outside world. Sounds like Murd's Paradise. But but the dream wedding becomes a nightmare when, one by one, the guests are brutally slaughtered by a mysterious killer who brands his victims with a hashtag. And it's a wedding gone wrong with a horror twist.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds very cool.
Classic slasher film setup, but in comic book form.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm going to do something I don't very often do.
Mm-hmm.
And call some attention to the American mythology section of the book.
Ah.
Well, first, on page 264, they're going to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the creation of Zorro. They've got a $10 one-shot here called Zorro: A Century of Swashbuckling, which is apparently a collection of it's an art book. It looks like a collection of cover images drawn by people like Alex Toth, Adam Hughes, George Perez, Frank Miller, Mike Grell. A whole lot of talented people. So it's a collection of static images of Zorro the Fox. And then moving on from that, on page 266, collecting a lost classic from the days of 70s black and white magazines. It's an adaptation of the 1975 film adaptation of the classic Edgar Rice Burroughs story, The Land That Time Forgot.
Oh, wow.
Written by Marv Wolfman, of all people. Art by Sonny Trinidad in glorious black and white. A 2-issue miniseries, first issue of which is on page 266 here.
That's something.
That is indeed something.
Always nice to see some Wolfman stuff out there as well.
Early Wolfman, too.
Yeah, right? Wow, Gold Digger has been around for almost 270 issues now. Out of Antarctic
Up there with
Press.
Spawn and Savage Dragon, too, aren't they?
Yeah. I had no idea it had been around that long, but issue 269 is solicited this month. So if you're a fan of that series, you're close to a milestone, too.
Mm-hmm.
The sequel to the best-selling political parody, Wall Might, First Term Part 2, is solicited on page 271. Timothy Lim and Mark Pellegrini, Thump the First, return to continue the saga of Wall Might, America's champion. Some good political satire there from the looks of it.
Oh, they do come up with some interesting exploitation projects there at Antarctic.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And then Archie the Married Life, 10th Anniversary #1 on page 273. We got 10 years later, a landmark moment in Archie Comics history is being revisited. Archie the Married Life is a sequel to the headline-making 2009 Archie wedding storyline. Archie got hitched, and now we see what happened next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all brought to you by that Michael Uslan guy.
Yep. Never heard of him.
Also known for having made 1 or 2 Batman movies possible, you may have heard.
Oh, yeah. Pretty much all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
God, I love the cover of the Archie vs. Predator 2. Recreating the cover of Archie #1, Mark Waid's Archie #1, only with a Predator head. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, we got some Katie Keene stuff being collected as we have a Katie Keene series coming to CW soon. So now they're collecting some of the Katie Keene stories into one Treasury edition. On page 276. We got Aspen dipping into the world of superheroes. On page 280, available for the first time, Idolized Volume 1. Hard to believe that a publisher like Aspen, it took until now for them to really have a superhero series. But David Schwartz is the writer, and Mika Gunnell and Pasquale Colano are the pencilists, and this will be out in stores on August 7th. And this collects the first volume of that series.
Yeah, that is kind of hard to believe that Aspen has never done a straight superhero series before this.
Yeah.
But they've done a bunch of things that were kind of superhero adjacent, I guess it could be argued. But yeah, this one actually has a cape, so that's as clear an indicator as you need.
No capes. Page 287. From Hell's Heart, an illustrated celebration of the works of Herman Melville. That sounds fascinating to me. It's a hardcover collection written by Herman Melville, obviously, with John Arcudi as well included in there with a bunch of artists celebrating Melville's works throughout the years. So that could be pretty cool.
Yeah, Bartleby the Scrivener, Billy Budd, Type E, yeah. I don't see Omu mentioned, but I'll bet you it's in there too.
They do say "and much more," so
that could easily be a part of much more.
Yeah. And I'll mention a Big Finish production on page 288, just for the fact that David Tennant returns as the 10th Doctor for another audio production, along with a bunch of his cast as well. Donna Noble, Wilf, Sylvia, a whole bunch of people from the 10th Doctor adventures coming back for the first time in a while.
All right, so those of you feeling nostalgic for that era of the Doctor's history, it's coming to you via audio.
Yep. Use your mind for the pictures.
That's right. Is theater of the mind. I see a book on page 301. It's treating an interesting chapter in animation history. It's called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, The Search for the Lost Disney Cartoons, a limited edition hardcover, and it treats the lengthy legal saga of an early Disney character that strayed from the Disney stable. Walt Disney lost the rights to a full 26 animated shorts featuring Oswald the Rabbit. And then back in 2006, Disney managed to recover them and has been making use of Oswald to one degree or another ever since. I think I remember that like Walter Lantz, the creator of Woody Woodpecker, ended up with control of Oswald for a while.
That's a possibility, yeah. However, do you know the story behind how they got Oswald back? It's one of my favorite pieces of trivia. They literally traded Al Michaels from ESPN/ABC to NBC in exchange for the rights.
About cross-media leveraging. Good grief.
Yeah, seriously. Like they NBC football got Al Michaels in exchange for them giving Oswald the Lucky Rabbit back to Disney.
Wow, that is a really cool piece of trivia.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure much is made of it in this book.
I'm sure they have to touch on it, yeah, because when it happened, and I remember when it did, I was just like, wow, Al Michaels is the first broadcaster to ever get traded.
Interesting thing to put on his resume. Traded for a cartoon rabbit.
I wonder if he's happy about that or sad. I don't know.
And a mouse to be named later.
Yep. I remember them using an analog to Oswald on Tiny Toons at one point. I remember Babs having adventures with an Oswald-esque character, but it was not actually Oswald.
If you're thinking, are you thinking of Bosco and Honey, possibly?
That may be what I'm thinking of. Yes.
Yeah, those were actual, like, early Warner Brothers black and white cartoon characters.
Oh, they were? Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. I always thought that they were Oswald analogs. I'm happy to see that they're actual real characters. I'll take it back.
Yeah, we'll let you.
Well, now I've learned, so now I can research more on Bosco.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I remember I used to... There was a Sunday morning kid show called Steam Pipe Alley. I kind of think it might have even been on WWOR for a while. But that was like an old-fashioned cartoon caravan kind of kid show. They used to show old black and white Bosco and Honey cartoons.
Ah, okay.
So that's how I know the character.
Very cool. We got some Little Lulu being collected on page 303. Speaking of the classics. Working Girl hardcover, written and drawn by John Stanley. And Little Lulu is most definitely one of those characters that just keeps on coming.
Mm-hmm. The minor sequential genius of John Stanley is a good part of her lasting appeal.
Hear, hear. I always think of that Simpsons episode with Alan Moore in it. Where he's trying to soothe himself and he's handed a Little Lulu and he just starts singing, oh, little Lulu, I love you, Lulu, just the same.
Wow. That's not the Simpsons episode I thought you were going for.
No.
I was thinking of the episode where a comic book guy is at a convention and a female geek is nearby trying to bargain for some issues of Little Lulu, and the two of them gaze into each other's eyes, and comic book guy kind of propositions her, and she says, "Comb the sweet tarts out of your beard and you got a deal." And he says, "Don't try to change me, baby."
Oh man, it's around the same era of Simpsons, but yeah, the one that I'm thinking of is the one with Dan Klaus and Alan Moore. They're at the I think it was the newly opened competitor to the Android's Dungeon that was voiced by Jack Black's character. And they're having a comic book signing, and at one point Dan Klaus is like I think Lisa's commenting on how much she likes his work, and Dan's like, yeah, but I really want to draw Batman, and he takes out images of what he would do with Batman's utility belt. And this is where he keeps his change purse for when he has to ride the bus.
Oh, yeah. That's I should probably see that episode sometime.
Yeah, that was the introduction of V is for Vacation, the children's book version of yeah.
The Watchmen babies.
Yes, Watchmen V is for Vacation. Yep.
I've gotten as far as the humanoid section.
Okay. I have one Fantagraphics that I'm going to mention on page 311. Press Enter to Continue by Anna Galvin. Like a candy-colored Black Mirror episode, Spanish cartoonist Anna Galvin's English language debut utilizes fluorescent colors to create a series of short stories that intertwine and explore the dehumanizing effects of contemporary society. Mentioning that as much for the introduction of a foreign language, cartoonist to the world of English, as I am to the subject matter. It's 1999 hardcover for 96 pages. Bit steep, but I'm sure there's a discount.
Oh, yes, of course. If you order through dcbservice.com, of course.
But of course.
Let's see. All right, so Humanoids is continuing to expand their imprint of superhero.
Mm-hmm.
There's a new series debuting here called Omni. The artist, they say art TBD, but apparently it has been determined. Ariella Kristantina has gotten the nod. Written by, as Chris mentioned earlier in this episode, one of my old favorite writers from late 90s, early 2000s, Devin K. Grayson.
Nice.
And the title character is a doctor without borders named Cecilia Cobina. She's been working in Africa, but then kind of empowering incident happens that ties her into the H1 superhero universe. Powered individuals are called the Ignited, and she is one of them. And she gains superhuman mental powers that give her like an eidetic memory, superior analytical skills, a form of clairvoyance. She becomes the Ignited, who's the only one who is able to unlock the secret of all the other Ignited around the world. So she's going to be a key character in this emergent universe. Those of you who are paying attention to it should probably pick up that issue.
I have one a little earlier, just to mention. Rainbow Rowell has a new original graphic novel that she's putting out. That's the creator who's been working on Runaways of late, and she's also a New York Times best-selling author. It's called Pumpkinheads, and it's solicited on page 314. And Deja and Josiah are seasonal best friends. Every autumn, they've worked together at the best pumpkin patch in the whole wide world. And they say goodbye every Halloween, and they're reunited every September 1st. This Halloween is different. This is their last season at the pumpkin patch. So what can they do to keep that friendship and possibly even a romance, who knows, going? But I like the looks of this series, and I'm more than likely going to pick it up.
Yeah, it's tempting. I like the Halloween setting more than anything.
Yeah.
It's available in softcover and hardcover editions.
Good touch. And Rainbow also, if you have not read Fangirls, it's a pretty good novel that she wrote a couple of years ago that I'm a huge fan of. Page 330. No Ivy League. Looks like a slice of life story about 17-year-old Hazel, who takes up a summer job clearing ivy from the forest in Portland, Oregon. And she's homeschooled, affluent, and sheltered. She soon finds that working side by side with at-risk teens leaves no room for comforting illusions of equality and understanding. So it's actually based on the real life of a real person, and that would be Hazel New Levant. I'm hoping that's how you pronounce it. And the art style looks cool. They're using like a grayscale shading technique on the art that looks pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd be worth giving this a shot if I can If I can find it for a steep enough discount, I will give it a go.
Sounds like a plan.
For any of you looking to buy it this month, it is $9.74 on DCBS, so 35% off.
Interesting looking new graphic novel coming out through Oni on pages 342 and 343. It's called The Black Mage, described in high concept as Harry Potter meets Final Fantasy, only with a lot more racism. It's about a young black mage. Well, hence the title, but black as in of African descent. We're talking about here. Young magically gifted student named Tom Token is accepted into St. Ivory Academy, which is kind of like an historically white wizarding school, says the copy. So he needs to kind of find his way at this new school without getting too much help from his classmates who are hostile to his presence there from go. And I'm imagining a couple of the faculty members might too. There's actually some wizards in Klansman robes depicted here. So that's the kind of fight that young Tom Token has ahead of him here. Fighting both literal black magic and the figurative black magic of racial prejudice. And he does have an ally in his friend Lindsay, who's going to help him along. So it's the experience of a black student entering a prejudicially entrenched white culture at a Hogwarts-like wizard academy.
Art style is waiting to be an animated series. Essentially, it looks like it would fit right in on Netflix with their selections.
Oh yeah, it's. It exhibits the increasingly common style that I've heard described as the Cal Art School of cartoon and comic art.
Yeah, which frankly is a term that I find a little bit demeaning because there's more to it than just that. I've seen people try to put it down that way, and if you don't like something, great, but there's no reason to put it down by lumping everything into a style that you put to the side. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
No. No offense or demeaning meant.
Oh no! I wasn't saying from you, Mert. I'm saying for those other people out there, those people that live on the internet.
Right. Wasn't using it as a pejorative here.
No, of course not.
Page 352 under paper cuts. A 7th volume of original Loud House comics is being put out. Realize not too many other people listening are likely to care, but I don't care. I am definitely buying it. Haven't missed one of these yet. The Loud House continues to be just about my favorite cartoon on TV right now.
I still haven't given it a shot. I still need to.
That's something you can jump into anytime. I mean, they don't do season arcs or anything like that. It's just episodic, classic comic strip in style. What am I even trying to say anymore? Classic comic strip inspired fun.
Very good.
Featuring a family of 11 rowdy and different 11 rowdy kids, each with its own very distinct personality and set of interests. And there's always chaos, and there's always a great deal of heart. And like I said, it's very much in the vein of things like Peanuts or Dennis the Menace. And it's on Nickelodeon, and I enjoy it very much. And the comics are all produced by members of the production team of the TV show.
Nice.
So it's just additional Loud House content for the buck. Nice. Always released in both hardcover and softcover editions. I don't think I need to tell you which one I tend to buy.
Yeah. Well, again, that is a good practice that I appreciate whenever I see it. I have one a little bit further back on 344 I want to touch on real quick because Mags Visaggio has a series, Morning in America, that's starting up. And the premise sounds pretty cool, so figured I'd mention it here. The Six Sisters, a group of friends and small-time delinquents who may be the only people standing between their suffocatingly small town and complete apocalyptic destruction. The sisters know there's something wrong in Tucker, Ohio, and they also know that the authorities aren't doing anything about it. So it sounds sort of Stranger Things-esque with a couple of twists involved, and the art is also previewed by Claudia Aguirre, and I like the looks of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of in the vein of Paper Girls, too.
Yep.
That it's a bunch of a ragtag group of teenage female friends cooling their heels in a small rural town in the early 80s.
Yes, indeed.
And they are, and Aguirre's art is really showing us that 80s aesthetic in full force. Some more good use of color. So that is, it's going to be a $19.99 cover price on a 136-page softcover graphic novel.
Not too shabby.
Let's see. The next thing I have is on page 356. We've got another one-shot featuring The Vigilant, which is kind of a peculiar super team concept brought to us from 2000 AD, which everything comes back to, as longtime listeners of CGS are aware. The Vigilant was introduced sometime last year, I think. It's kind of a jam supergroup cobbled together from odd and esoteric superhero characters sampled from across several decades worth of British superhero comics. So we've got characters like Adam Eterno and the Leopard from Lime Street and Pete's Pocket Army, and they're all just kind of thrown together into this bizarre super team. And this is, I think, the second one-shot that 2080 has introduced featuring this ragtag bunch of odd all-stars. And I bought the last one, and I'm going ahead and buying this one too. And on top of that, right above that, there's actually a collection of old, never-before-reprinted comic stories featuring one member of the Vigilant, the Steel Commando, who is an experimental combat robot built by the British Army, who, thanks to a fluke in his programming, will only accept orders from Ernie Bates, reputed to be the laziest soldier in that British Army. So it's kind of like G.I. Robot beats Beetle Bailey, plus a bunch of English persons running around. So it sounds like good fun to me. I'm probably going to buy both of these things that I've just mentioned. Exploration into the wild and wonderful world of British comics.
Chip, chip, cheerio.
And all that rot.
Just had one. Here we go. Okay, on page 358. Out of Sanctum Productions, I believe. It's hard to tell on this page layout. It's either that or Scout. But Headless #1 by Alexander Banchita. Takes place in Salem, Massachusetts in 1987. Two teenagers have been found dead, and it looks like the Headless Horseman is back. So I love the premise. It's just there's been a lot of stuff based in the mid '80s lately, and this continues that trend. But hey, it involves the Headless Horseman, so it might be worth giving a go.
Yeah, I think you may have talked me into it there, Ian.
Nice.
Because again, this is also in the vein of Stranger Things and/or Paper Girls. Like the color scheme of the cover, especially, makes me think of Paper Girls.
I was actually immediately thinking of Paper Girls as well. So yeah, we're on the same wavelength there.
Yeah, so, and I do enjoy a good Headless Horseman story as well, so I think you can count me in.
Pretty close to shooting my bolt at this point, but if you have any others, go right ahead.
At least one or two other things I could throw out there. Under Titan, there is a Secret Life of Pets hardcover. That's on page 371. Collecting some comics published some time ago by Titan, inspired by the first movie, I would think. The Secret Life of Pets 2 is currently in theaters, so if that's kindled an interest in you or some young readers of your acquaintance for more stories based on these characters, Titan is the place where you can go.
They also have a new Snowpiercer graphic novel out as well on page 366.
A new one, you say?
It looks like it. Yeah, it's a prequel, part 1, Extinction. So back into the world of Snowpiercer, letting us know where it is, I guess. And it says it's the graphic novel saga that inspired the TV series. I love how they say inspired, because I'm sure the TV series is going to be very different.
Yeah, I didn't even know they were planning a TV series. I know that a movie had been made.
Yeah, I'd heard about the TV series a little while ago. I think it's going to TNT, if I remember correctly.
That's what it says on the page I'm looking at here. Yep. An all-new prequel story ahead of the TNT TV adaptation.
Yep, starring Daveed Diggs of Hamilton and Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I mean, for those of you listening who don't know, Snowpiercer is a post-apocalyptic tale about a future world that's been plunged into kind of a nuclear winter ice age kind of situation. Much of surviving humanity has all been crammed into a train called Snowpiercer, and it just runs around on its track endlessly. And its inside is kind of a symbolic microcosm of human society. All the social elites are up in the front of the train, and they enjoy all kinds of luxuries. The military class are in the middle. They live on a diet of vitamin pills, and their main function in life is to act as a preserver of the current structure of order, keeping the rich, comfy and happy and comfortable, let's try that, up in the front of the train, and preventing the rabble that have been crammed into the back of the train with almost nothing to eat, drink, or to live for. And so they're kind of the buffer layer between these two social classes that are kind of destined to clash at some point. And the story is just kind of about the intrigues that develop in this hardly sustainable model of society, constantly mobile aboard this super train speeding across a frigid post-apocalyptic landscape.
Yeah.
And I guess they've come up with more stories to tell with this concept.
Yeah, I read the graphic novel shortly after I watched the movie, and I enjoyed the movie a lot. But the what it's based on is very different. I mean, there's parts that they keep and parts that they throw out, but there's definitely many different versions of Snowpiercer running out there, and now there's going to be one more. So there you go.
Did you enjoy which do you think was better, the movie or the graphic novel?
Honestly, I kind of like the movie a little better.
Really?
Yeah, I felt like that and it might have just been the fact that it is a foreign graphic novel that's been translated, but I felt a little bit more connected to the movie than I did to the graphic novel. There's parts of the graphic novel that are just outright weird. Like even more, like way more so than what the movie did. The movie's tame in comparison to some of the stuff that's in that graphic novel. So it's also highly possible I just was not in the right mindset for it when I was reading it. But I enjoyed both. I think I like the movie better.
All right. Well, next time that comes up on basic cable and I've got some time to spare, I should probably give it a look.
Yep, some good Chris Evans action in that too.
Sure enough.
388. I've got something from Zenoscope. Van Helsing versus Dracula's daughter. Premise alone, I don't even really need to read the description for that. It's Van Helsing versus Dracula's daughter. I mean, come on.
And I got to throw in the Jamie D. Memorial Valiant plug here.
Yep.
On pages 376 and 377, there's a new Dr. Mirage series starting up here, which is it's a 5-issue miniseries. And the original 90s Valiant Dr. Mirage was one of my favorite Valiant characters. And the current incarnation of Valiant has been focusing more on his widow, the surviving Dr. Mirage, the Dr. Shanfeng Mirage, who has supernatural adventures accompanied by the spirit of her deceased husband. And this miniseries is being written by the aforementioned Mags Visaggio, with art by Nick Robles.
Very good.
And what have you to say on the subject of manga, Ian?
Oh, but I have many a thing. We got a new title coming out of Udon, Stravaganza Volume 1 by Akihito Tomi on page 406. A mysterious warrior travels the kingdom of Auroria, battling monstrous creatures and seeking adventure. Few know she is secretly Auroria's young and inexperienced masked monarch, Queen Vivian. In a world where humans are not at the top of the food chain, the Queen in the Iron Mask must learn to use both her sword and her throne to protect her people. Kind of a little bit of a She-Ra type angle, but more like the original than the current, from the sounds of it.
I can see that.
Yep. But I like the sounds of it either way.
Yeah, well, just the way that she's attired, that brings to mind the original She-Ra more than the current.
Definitely.
Yeah. Scantily clad warrior queen wearing an iron helm over her head. It's kind of a strange image. Expect her to whip out a rubber chicken and hit someone over the head with it.
Oh my God. Page 410. Something that I meant to mention on the very next episode that you guys are going to hear, but I completely forgot to. The Promised Neverland. Now this is a series that I just read volume 1 of, and it's also currently airing on Adult Swim in their anime block on Sundays, I think at midnight, if I remember correctly. But The Promised Neverland is a story about orphans living in an orphanage. Every couple of years, an orphan is taken away to live in the outside world, and they're told that they're never allowed to visit the outside world unless they are accompanied by someone. And 2 of these orphans go to investigate when one of their comrades is leaving. And they're curious because they've never really received letters from the outside world. They've only ever heard about it. And they witness something horrible happening to this individual, which proves to them that their life is not exactly what they've been led to believe. It's really, really well done. And anybody who's a fan of stuff like Attack on Titan would definitely be in the right realm for Promised Neverland. Volume 11 is being solicited this month, and you can find the other 10 volumes easily on either DCBS or in-stock trades or through your library system, hopefully, like I've been doing. But well worth your time, whether it be the anime or the manga, The Promised Neverland. Good stuff.
I think I have seen some commercials for the anime series on Tsunami.
Yeah, it's only, I think only about 9 episodes in at the moment, so it somewhat recently started airing.
But you see, and I'm old and lame, and I don't stay up that late on Saturday nights.
No worries. Alas. So it goes. And I've got a novel that's being solicited on page 415 called Automatic. So anybody who's into Japanese translations of novels can check it out. It's out of Viz. But it's about the ruling land from Tempu Castle, an imperial line of strict female succession. And caught between these 2 immense powers, the sprawling city of Tempu is home to many wonders. And when a secret that threatens to shake the imperial line intersects with the mystery of Eve's creation, events are set in motion that soon race toward a shocking conclusion. So hey, something without pictures. on the previous episode. So if you want to check out some written material that might be worth your while.
That's some authentic Japanese prose, albeit in translation.
Mm-hmm. I think that's just about it. I'm looking at the rest of it right here, and nothing automatically catching my eye. So I think I am good, unless you have anything else.
Oh, my bolt has been well and truly shot, Ian.
Alrighty. Well, in that case, remind them who we're sponsored by.
We are sponsored on this previews episode by the good folks at the Discount Comic Book Service. Go to dcbservice.com. Check out all of their fantastic discounts. Check out their bundles. Just check them out in general. They should be your first and only stop for your comic book online pre-ordering needs.
Excellent. Well done.
All right. If you'd like to send us an email, the address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave a voicemail, you can call 267-702-6642. We have determined that does still work. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter, where our handle is @comicgeekspeak. You can go to the comicforums.vanillacommunity.com, which is our forum site where you can leave feedback about this and many other episodes of our podcast, and also have conversations with your fellow forumites on a variety of geeky topics, possibly not directly relating to our show, but relating to geekiness in general. We'd like to thank everyone, as always, who have donated monetarily to the program in the past. We really appreciate it. The show would not be what it is today without your help. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.